Okay, be honest. Be honest. Did you know the name of the band that performed that song, recorded that song you just heard? The song is called Love Me, and it was exactly 1 decade ago today, on this day in 2016, when said band went to number 1 on the U.S. albums chart when they released their second studio album. I am raising my hand to admit to you, because I will never do anything on this show except tell you the unvarnished truth. I had not even heard of this band before I read about them this morning and decided to play one of their songs. The band is called The 1975, and it was on this day in 2016, exactly 10 years ago, when the album, now brace yourself, this will sound like a run-on sentence, okay? The album is entitled, I Like It When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. I like it when you sleep, for you are so beautiful yet so unaware of it. If that doesn't creep you out, I don't know what will. But the album, I Like It When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It, went number 1 on the Billboard album charts, and it became the album with the longest title ever of a Billboard number 1. 71 characters in the title of the 1975 album. The 1975 is the band name. I Like It When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful, Yet So Unaware of It. You creepy, creepy people in the band, the 1975. Love Me was the lead single released from that 71-character album, the longest title of any Billboard number 1 album. I had choices to make. There are always choices. With choices come consequences. One of my other choices today was 50 Cent, Fitty, Curtis Jackson, who had 3 songs in the top 5, 2 of his own and 1 as a member of the G Unit. If you're up to speed on this stuff, can I introduce you to Big Mike sometime? If you know, you know. That was a character I used to play on the radio. And I was going to play some 50 Cent because when I was playing that character on the radio, the station I worked at played his music. But I listened to it this morning, even the clean version. I'm like, dang, 50 Cent, you nasty. I thought, I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to play that at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I played a band I'd never heard of before. It is 4 minutes after 9. It is a Thursday morning. It is mercifully the last day of this godforsaken, ding-dang, never-ending winter. But it does end, at least according to the calendar, today. Tomorrow will mark the beginning of spring. And I don't know about you, but I cannot wait. Here's a little insight. I'm going to bring you inside the radio station this morning because you can tell that Christine Clark is away this week, right? Josh Piercy's been doing a great job filling in on All News Mornings with Mark Douglas, but without Christine here, it's just a bunch of us knuckleheads walking around the hallways, right? So I come walking down the hallway this morning, and the rest of the knuckleheads, and by knuckleheads, I mean the guys here at the radio station. Listen, we are a certain type. We're knuckleheads. I own this. I don't mean to speak for my knucklehead male coworkers, but they're a bunch of knuckleheads. We're all a bunch of muckety-mucks around here. And when Christine isn't here to keep us in line, these are the things that happen. So I'm walking down the hall, and the rest of the knuckleheads are making fun of Devin Robertson. They're picking on him today because he's dressed. I shouldn't say picking on. This is what we knuckleheads do. Devin is dressed very pastel. We're not, the knuckleheads are not going to let that pass without comment. So I walk down the hall. I wonder, why are we picking on Devin this morning? What's Devin doing pinned up against the, not physically, but Devin's back's against the wall. Everybody's around. They're talking to Devin. They're pointing at Devin. I'm like, I want in on this. I'm a knucklehead too. I want to be a part of this. Devin looks great. He is in pastels. There's no denying these two things, that he looks great and that he's in pastels. And so I said, this is very Miami Vice. And then I rolled my eyes because I'm old and I know these things. And I said, you probably don't even know. You don't even understand that reference, do you? He says, what do you mean? To a Hollywood movie? And I give up right there. I got to give up. No, not to a movie that was made in 2006, you knucklehead. To a TV show that broke new ground in the 1980s. About 30 years, 20 years before you were born. Anyway, Devin's a good guy. He looks great. He's in pastel. and all the knuckleheads at the radio station today, because there is no keeper of the house when Christina's away. And Devin had to just deal with it. And he does, because he's a good guy and he looks good in his pastels. He's got a Sonny Crockett look going today. And if you know that reference, aside from the 2006 movie, then you and I can be friends. If you only know the 2006 movie, we got some work to do in this relationship, okay? I posted yesterday on our show's Facebook page, as I promised I would, some pictures that I had taken while Rosie the pandemic pup and I were walking around our neighborhood this week. And I was a little bit reluctant, and I'm not surprised necessarily to the reaction to these pictures that are on our Facebook page. Some of the reaction is garbage always looks bad, and you know, you should be happy that this is your problem. Like, you're complaining about this, but there are parts of the world right now where people are worried about bombs being dropped on them. And look, I get all of that, but I'm going to defend myself here and all of the other people, because there's been lots of traction on this particular post, and the large majority of those commenting seem to be of the same mind as me. I'm not trying to shame anybody. None of these buildings or properties are recognizable. If you see the photo and you recognize your own building or neighborhood, then I'm sorry if you feel bad. I am, but I don't know. Here's the thing, okay? I've posted 3 pictures. One is of a sixplex, whatever, a low-rise multi-unit building that Rosie and I walk past, where the garbage bins are all like still kind of sort of lined up, but tipped over on their sides and just kind of strewn about the side of the parking lot. Okay. Another one is a dozen bins lined up very neatly, I will grant you, but lined up along the side of the low-rise multi-unit small apartment building, visible to the neighbors looking out their front windows across the street. They may be lined up nicely, but there's a whole big line of them. And then my personal favorite is the one where the bins are at the end of the driveway, right by the sidewalk. There are bins on either side of the driveway. So I'm assuming that there are multiple units within this. It's a house, so probably 2, maybe a third unit in there. I don't know. But bins on either side of the driveway near the sidewalk, and those bins are overflowing with garbage bags because it seems that the tenants of this building or this home just bring their garbage out to the front of the driveway or the end of the driveway by the sidewalk and fill it up there, and then presumably when garbage day arrives, they'll roll it across the sidewalk to the edge of the road for pickup. Even though, based on what you can see in the picture, if you go to our Facebook page, just look up the Mike Farwell Show on Facebook, you'll see that, or you'll know that the bins are overflowing with bags, and that's a no-no, right? When you get the bin to the curb, it has to have the lid closed. But I digress on that. Again, I suspect that some people think I'm just first world problems, Farwell. Find something else to complain about, and that's fair. And if it's your property or your neighborhood where you live, like, I'm not trying to shame that. This is what I'm saying here. This is why I posted it with some deliberation, because it doesn't look nice. In my opinion, it just doesn't look nice. And I can tell you, because Rosie and I are always out walking after the show, and it didn't always look like this. So this is another outcome from our change to the way we're doing waste collection in the region. And I know there are myriad reasons for the change to the waste collection system, but I just wonder if, when this was done, this change was made, this outcome was considered. I don't think the neighborhoods that I'm walking with the dog look as nice. And when the neighborhoods don't look as nice, you don't feel as good in those neighborhoods, do you? That's just reality. Furthermore, I would submit to you, ask any business owner in Uptown Waterloo or in the Galt area of Cambridge how they feel about the bins. Remember the Galt business owner that posted a photo a couple of weeks ago when this collection system started, and all you see up and down the street is bins out front the businesses because they've got no place to store them. So this is great if you have the garage, the space on your property to tuck these things out of the way. I don't have that space at home, and my bins sit at the back of my driveway, so certainly not out front by the sidewalk like the one place that I've shared the photo from. But I don't even like them the way they look in the back of the driveway. And now here, again, I'm making it personal, but here's the thing. A few years ago, 5 or so, I don't remember exactly, but a number of years ago, we did some work in the backyard so that we arrived at a spot where the garbage bins needed to be put into a better spot, and it was more visible from the front of the house. You want some curb appeal, right? So we bought for more than $100. I think it was close to $200, a storage bin. You spend the money, you spend the time assembling it. I know I'm not building a skyscraper here, but whatever. This is life in Waterloo Region, first world problem. I get it. So you spend the money, you spend the time putting the bin together so that the garbage bins can go inside, and now everything looks nicer. It's tidy. Your curb appeal is there. And now all of a sudden, I've got these big things sitting at the back of the driveway that don't fit clearly in the old bin, the old storage bin. So now what? And my beloved been looking around to see what might be out there, and we're into the hundreds of dollars, many hundreds of dollars, to buy a storage shed of some kind large enough for these new bins. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm sorry, but no. I'm already, my region, this region, our region has taxed me to the tune of about 35% over the past 4 years. My taxes are up 35%. I'm getting less for more money every time I open my wallet these days. Now I'm getting less service. Recycling only comes every 2 weeks, right? Collection for the garbage is only, 4 days a week, whatever it is. I'm getting less service for the same taxes that I'm paying in this region. And now, just to make it look nicer, I'm going to go spend hundreds of dollars more and put more time in to find a storage facility for these bins. I'm over it. Like, I'm done. Every time I turn around, somebody wants more money out of my pocket, and I'm tired. So, yes, it's a first world problem. But like a buddy of mine said, we live in the first world. So anyway, I posted those pictures. That's my rationale. If your neighborhood doesn't look as nice, you don't feel as good in it. And I'm not investing any more because you just keep asking me for more. You ask me for more taxes, then you make changes that I have to spend hundreds of dollars to fix on my own property. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for it. Anyway, that's the background on the photos. I know many of you have seen the photos already, and by all means, check it out for yourself. See what you like. That's just what it looks like, and maybe you're okay with that, and that's okay too. But it's okay for me to not be okay with it and to say, it didn't look like this a month ago. I walk these same neighborhoods. Rosie and I have about 5, 6, maybe 7 different routes that we travel around every single day. So basically once a week I'm in these neighborhoods. They didn't look like this before. And they look like this now, and I don't think they look very nice. Paul is with us on the phone this morning. Farwell's Force, member number 211. Morning, Paul.
Oh, Mike, you had to get going about those stupid garbage cans.
I'm sorry, I know.
I went out. I only get one. So I got one of my kids moved back home years ago. So I got a couple living with me with 3 grandkids now. One of them still in diapers, and we're only allowed one of those bins unless it's a legal duplex. So I'm stuck with one. So I went out the other day, and somebody had put a half a garbage bag in one of those new fancy black bins that's supposed to hold the same amount of garbage that we did before. We had 3 bags in the old system. So I just have an average size garbage can in the garage that we fill up, and then when that's full, I tie up the bag, put it in the black bin. I go out with my first bag, and like I said, there's a half a bag in the bottom of the garbage can already. I drop my bag in, and it's like 6 inches from the top of the can. How am I supposed to fit 3 bags in there and have the lid full? I don't get it. This is a scam. I don't like it.
Paul, I appreciate the call. I'm jealous of you having a garage. If I had a garage to store these in, I would feel differently, but I am not that privileged to have that place for a vehicle and or all the storage. That's usually what we use garages for, right? And I don't think, I mean, you're squeezing 3 bags in there for sure. For sure you're squeezing 3 bags in because the math doesn't work when you consider what 3 bags is equivalent to and what space the big black bin has in it. But nonetheless. Mike, Farwell's Force, member number 37. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael. A couple of years ago, because my mom's house in Waterloo, I purchased one of these small storage sheds, all right, or boxes, whatever you want to call it, to store her recyclables and everything else. It was made out of plastic, but the little Ricky raccoons there are smart enough to get into the damn thing. So then I built a wooden box to put the storage in. Well, the wooden box that I built a couple years ago is no longer good enough because these bins are bigger.
This is the same situation I find myself in.
So now I built another, I'd say a bigger box, to store the bins, the recyclables, the big bins, and everything else in her driveway. She only has a single-car garage, and we can barely fit a car in there, right? I think these things are unsightly, to tell you the truth. It makes it look like the neighborhood has become a slum with them all thrown around the people's driveways. And at night, the local critter brigade, dogs or whatever, try to break into them.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, Mike. And listen, we haven't had the critter problem yet, but we had it with the original bin we assembled in the backyard, and then I reinforced that sucker so that everything was working just fine. It was working just fine. And when it comes to these low-rise, multi-unit apartment buildings, surely there is some requirement that says instead of lining them along the side of the building, which is visible, I said you look out your window across the street at the apartment building, and all you're seeing is these bins lined up along the side. Shouldn't they be lined up at the back of the parking lot or something at minimum? I don't know. And I know the one place where they're all tipped over, yeah, it gets windy and things get blown down. Property manager that's there to make sure they stand up. And again, from where they were sitting, right out near the sidewalk, surely there's a place that they should be placed away from pedestrians, kids on bicycles, etc., those sorts of things. Ranger Joe is with us this morning, too. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good.
Good. Mike, you know what? I agree with everything your last caller said and what everybody feels the same way right now. And we all know the reason that these containers are so huge is because they come every 2 weeks, to clean them out for us. But, yeah, the whole neighborhood looks cheaper, But the other thing that really bothers me even more so is there's a lot of people on my street that after the pickups are made, Mike, sometimes those damn things sit there in front of their house for 2 days or more. As far as I'm concerned, Mike, that's just plain laziness. When they're empty, get them the hell back on your driveway, Other than that, Mike, it is what it is, and there's nothing we can do about it, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, Mike, one more thing, is that people have to get on top of the fact that they come for the example, Mike, in our neighborhood. They came for the garbage yesterday. So that means yesterday was a garbage day and the compostables, but it wasn't for the blue bins.
Blue bins only come every 2 weeks now, Joe.
Yeah. So half the people have the blue bins out with the garbage bins yesterday.
Yeah, well, we have to see. This is we have to get you. There's a part that we have to play here too, right? And please, I'm going to tell you again. Use the WasteWiz app. It's really it works great. It really does. There is a learning curve for us. And on the point of the bins sitting out for a couple of days after collection day, there are always going to be those people. You people know who you are. We had a neighbor that left even in the old system. And I'd be saying to my beloved, why have they not brought the bins in from the curb yet? I've never been a fan of that. I don't take mine out at night until the cover of darkness, leave them there, and then wheel them back in as soon as I get home from work the next day. But anyway, we have a role to play in this too. But I sure hope there are reminders being sent to multi-unit, low-rise apartment buildings that where these bins should be stored and at least tucked out of the way. Because, like a couple of callers have said, it just doesn't look great. And when your neighborhood doesn't look great, you don't feel very good in your neighborhood. I'm going to get to your Farwell Show 5 after this quick timeout on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I know that you know. Our phone lines are open the minute we begin the show every day, and you had things to say as we continue to adjust to the new waste collection system. So I'm getting to it a little bit late, but we always like to have very near to the beginning of the show, your Farwell Show 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, here we go with those 5 things, starting at number 1, of course. It's the day we have been waiting for as the best women university hockey players in the country take to the ice in Elmira. The 2026 U Sports Women's Hockey Championships open today at the Woolwich Community Centre, with Concordia hosting Manitoba this afternoon at 3. Then tonight, it's the host Waterloo Warriors facing off with the team that eliminated them from this year's playoffs, the Guelph Griffins. That game starts at 7. Number 2, the Cambridge Redhawks have a chance to sweep their first-round playoff series tonight in Caledonia. The Redhawks finished the regular season by tying a GOHL record for wins in a season with 45. And at the North Dumfries Community Complex tonight, the Air Centennials skate with the St. Catharines Falcons. The Falcons lead that series 2-1. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the fundraising campaign for a twin pad and new program space at the North Dumfries Community Complex has surpassed its fundraising goal. So far, raising more than $2.6 million. The goal was $2.15 million. More than 110 people have donated to the second fundraising campaign undertaken by the Centre for the Community Group of North Dumfries. Number 4, municipalities across Waterloo Region are coming together to invite hopeful municipal election candidates to learn how to run for office. The Lead Local Municipal Election Candidate Engagement event is designed to broaden awareness of the municipal election process and support individuals considering a run for office. The event will take place on April the 23rd at the Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum. The municipal election happens on October the 26th of this year, and I heard from a member of Farwell's force yesterday that he is planning on throwing his name onto a ballot this year. So April the 23rd at the Ken Sealing Museum, a Lead Local Municipal Election Candidate Engagement event is set to go. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a new estimate suggests Canada's population dropped in the closing months of 2025 because of a slowdown in immigration. According to StatsCan, the population lost about 102,000 people last year. This coming after the non-permanent resident population fell by more than 171,000 individuals.
As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
Are you going to feel safer if you could carry pepper spray in your pocket? We're going to talk about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says more and more Ontarians are feeling less and less safe. And so he, Premier Ford, is appealing to our federal government to legalize pepper spray. That, of course, would allow you to carry legally a small canister of a noxious substance that could protect you in the event your person was being threatened or your safety was being threatened. Rebecca Bromwich is a lawyer and adjunct professor in the Department of Law and Legal Studies at Carleton University. Joins us to talk more about this. Rebecca, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you make of the idea? If I carried pepper spray down the street with me, am I going to be safer?
So the short answer is, in my view, no. But I'd like to talk a little bit about why and how Canada's legal regime, this isn't a detail. So in Canada, we have this idea in a constitution of peace, order, and good government. And it sounds really boring. But instead of, if you look at a New Hampshire license plate, it says live free or die. And so the Americans have this notion of the right to bear arms. Our basic agreement as Canadians is the idea that we are living in a peaceful society, and if there is danger, we're supposed to call 911 or whatever the number is in our region. The idea of using self-defense through use of weapons really flies in the face of our basic social agreement.
Has that agreement, in your view, changed at all in recent times?
Well, the Constitution hasn't changed. And in fact, the laws that we have in Canada have actually strengthened in recent times with respect to the idea that we are supposed to be living in a condition of peace. There's a case called Jobidon from the 1990s in the Supreme Court of Canada, and that case makes clear that street fights are illegal in Canada. So a fist fight, like if in that case there were two men who were equally, it was a fair fight by all, measures. They said, let's step outside, and they had a fight in the street. One of them unfortunately died. And the court said that no fighting is legal in Canada. We can't have consensual fighting on our streets. And similarly, self-defense rules in the criminal code were rationalized with the new Section 34 in the last decade. But again, it really emphasizes and amplifies the idea that we are not a society where we are allowed to be thinking about the retaliatory gestures. And in fact, we always have an obligation to retreat where possible in Canada. We don't have stand your ground laws. So no, I mean, that the basic vibe, the basic agreement that we have as Canadians, that this is a peaceful society and that we live under the rule of law it has not changed.
Perhaps the perception of it then? Because Premier Ford is talking about, a home invasion. He feels as though this is something we need for our personal protection. So is this just a political move? Is there a perception of less safety here that might prompt such a request of our federal government?
So there are concerns about violent crime, and, there are perpetually concerns about violent crime, and they should be taken seriously. So there are home invasion robberies that take place. There are carjackings that take place. These things do happen. Usually what happens when there is a rise in violent crime, because, I've been practicing law and studying it for, 25 years. Usually what happens is there's a call for law and order, and the relevant government will say, we need a bigger police budget. We need to be able to have better police responses. And so to not say that and to cast attention at the idea that we should defend ourselves, that's a bit unusual for Canada. The fact that there is crime is not unusual for Canada. Very unfortunately, there is always a crime, and it all needs to be taken seriously. I'd like to see a little bit more information. I mean, I'm an academic after all, about the specifics around crime, because most dangerous place for women is in their home. Most attacks, and I know that the Ford government has been talking about women's safety here, and just to look specifically at women experience violence statistically much more often in the home, and they're much more likely to be physically or sexually assaulted by someone that they know. And so this idea of stranger assaults, I mean, they do happen, but it's a bit of misleading to suggest that this will make women in particular safer.
I really like where you're coming from, Rebecca, when you talk about levels of violent crime, how seriously they must be taken. And bluntly, there will always be crimes, violent or otherwise. But this idea, the way we seem to have approached them historically is increasing police budgets, et cetera. And still, we find ourselves having these conversations. What, in your experience, would be a better approach to reducing, in this case specifically, perhaps, violent crimes?
Well, I work in the context of violence against women. I mean, and there's all kinds of solutions with respect to lots of things. I mean, we need to look at the underlying contributing factors that lead people to commit crimes. Is there, a lot of poverty, marginality? We look specifically at women's vulnerability. We should be looking less at issues about pepper spray and more about the shelter system and providing mechanisms for safety. We should be looking at mental health supports. We should be looking at early years education. I've done a lot of research about the movement from somebody's adverse circumstances and trauma as a child into offending behavior in the adult system. So there's a lot of things we could do that are actually not criminal, and some of them not even legal, that would actually effectively reduce levels of violent crime. It's also important to notice that the criminal code and the prohibition against weapons are federal law. And so it's not even the provincial government's job to decide whether or not pepper spray should be legal or whether or not we should have defensive weapons legalized in Canada. That's a federal jurisdiction. So that's their power. That's their job. And so I think we should be skeptical when the provincial government has many jobs and many things it can do and many options available to it when it says its response is to ask someone else to do their job better. Not that, we can't all do our jobs better, but I think there's a bit of politicking happening here.
I would agree. And this is also, of course, not the first time a province has made this request. I get the sense that the federal government has bigger fish to fry, if you'll forgive the turn of phrase at this moment, than dealing with this particular issue.
Well, I mean, the federal government needs to always be working on all of its files. And there is a rationalization and a significant amendment to the self-defense laws in the criminal code that happened not that long ago. It was about a decade ago. And they changed the way the self-defense law operates in Canada to make it less confusing, less antiquated. So they do work on this, and there are, bureaucrats working on all the files in Ottawa. So I never like that excuse. I don't want to give the feds that excuse to say, well, we're more important than your problems. But I do think they are working on it, and I do think they've recently come up with some changes to self-defense law. And so I don't think that's the right place for us to be looking. I think we need to be looking at how safe are our communities, what's making us unsafe, and what are the things we can do that are our jobs, whether municipally, provincially, or federally. We should each be looking at the files we have and how we can deal better with them.
Rebecca, I really appreciate the perspective on the show today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Rebecca Bromwich is a lawyer and an adjunct professor in the Department of Law and Legal Studies at Carleton University. The short answer to whether or not Ms. Bromwich believes carrying pepper spray will make you safer is no. I'm curious as to your take on this, though. And my goodness, since Premier Ford dropped this little nugget on Monday, haven't we just gone a whole lot further down the road? I'm sure you heard the comments from just yesterday when Premier Ford was not too far from our neck of the woods, just up in Kenilworth, Arthur area, North Wellington. And he went on a bit of a tangent / rant about a homeowner in Vaughan whose home was invaded, and he was a legal registered firearms owner, and put a bullet into the leg of one of the would-be thieves or one of the home invaders. And Premier Ford was complimentary, congratulatory. Way to go. You should have shot him more. This will teach those thieves to break into people's houses because legal gun owners will shoot. And that's what happened. And Premier Ford was all for it. It started on Monday with this comment that he was going to appeal to the federal government to legalize pepper spray. Here's my take on this, and I hope I can make it understandable enough. So just using the example I just shared from the homeowner in Vaughan that shot a would-be thief, a home invader, legally registered firearms owners. Guns are currently legal. We can't carry a concealed firearm, but we do have access, if we go through the proper channels, right, to firearms. So the thing itself, the firearm itself, is a legal item. They get manufactured, they get sold, etc. The same holds true for pepper spray today. It may not be legal to carry, but it certainly is legal to produce and manufacture. In the United States, you can carry it. So I believe, much like firearms, those who wish to get their hands on them to use them for an illicit or illegal purpose, they're going to do it anyway. It's probably a little bit harder, and it keeps your average bear away from carrying a firearm. But if you really want to get your hands on one, it seems as though you can find a way to get your hands on one. So I would submit the same to you when it comes to pepper spray. If you really wanted to get your hands on some pepper spray, if you really wanted to feel safer by concealing that canister of pepper spray in your purse or in your pocket, then you would find a way to do that anyway. So I would say no to legalizing, because of course once you do that, it becomes so much more commonplace. The carrying of it would be so much more widespread, and then goodness knows what the outcome of that is. Does it start with something in a schoolyard? Is it just a random sort of thing? So making it legal makes it far more accessible. And so I would say the answer is no. And I say this as a dude. When Premier Ford first floated this idea, my beloved said right away, I'd carry it if I could, because obviously, as a woman, she experiences our community far differently than I do. And I totally get that. And I'm always trying to learn from that. But I think, again, firearms, you can't carry concealed. You can't just walk down the street with one. But the firearm itself is something that's legal. It's manufactured. You can get your hands on it. I think people already, if they are so inclined, will get their hands on pepper spray. If we legalize it, it becomes way too accessible. And who knows what the outcome of that is. So I land on the no side to legalizing pepper spray. What about you? Is this a good idea? Should the federal government take the Premier's suggestion and legalize pepper spray for Canadians? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. We'll start taking your calls after this on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
It's not even the provincial government's job to decide whether or not pepper spray should be legal. That's a federal jurisdiction, so that's their job. And so I think we should be skeptical when the provincial government has many jobs and many things it can do and many options available to it when it says its response is to ask someone else to do their job better. Not that we can't all do our jobs better, but I think there's a bit of politicking happening here.
Rebecca Bromwich is a lawyer and adjunct professor in the Department of Law and Legal Studies at Carleton University, joins us this morning to talk about Ontario Premier Ford's request of the federal government to legalize pepper spray. Premier Ford says we need this to feel safer on Ontario's streets. Let's go to the phones, hear from you on this. George, good morning.
00 George here.
Farwell's Force member number 00. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing really good. How about yourself?
I'm good, too. Thank you.
Good. I enjoyed listening to your guest. Everything she said was fun and dandy. But you know what, Mike? At the end of the day, I want our women folk to have that extended protection if they need it. If they meet with some nefarious situation, they should be able to protect themselves, not say, oh, well, the federal and provincial government are taking care of everything. No. They need to be able to take care of themselves.
All right, George, I appreciate the call. And again, as I said, when I talked to my beloved about this, she was immediately all for it. And I completely understand the different experiences she has when she's walking about our community. Gary, Farwell's Force member number 41. Good morning.
Good morning, buddy. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I agree with the last caller, but I'm on the fence with it. I could see it kind of going both ways. It would be nice to have some sort of protection because, in the 18 years I've done transit and all the crazy stuff that I've seen over the years, there's, it's just a different world out there. It's quite different for a lot of people in mental health and robbing and doing whatever they do. But it'd be nice to have, even for my daughter, for my fiance, some sort of protection. But I could see it going the other way, like if it got out of hand, like, say, the younger kids or someone wanting to steal your wallet or your purse or something, they're going to pepper spray you and steal everything that you have. Like, I'm kind of on the fence with it, but it would be nice to have some sort of protection against some of the people that do harm to other people for whatever reason. But it's a tough one. I'm in the middle, but...
All right, Gary, I appreciate that. It is a tough one. And I think I hear where you're coming from, where the person who would be likely to commit the crime, steal that purse, rob that store, whatever, they are carrying it. Because, again, you legalize it, it becomes that much more accessible. Marino, Farwell's Force member number 66. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm definitely in favor of it. And the answer that your guest gave is a typical Canadian answer. Let's do more research. Let's send it to committee. Let's look at root causes. Yet the person that's walking downtown tonight and gets assaulted, doing more research doesn't help them. They need something to be able to protect themselves immediately. Sometimes there is no time to call 911. Having something to be able to protect yourself, I complete agreement with.
Marino, I appreciate that call, and it's a really good point. I've been hearing about and studying and talking to guests about root causes for decades now, getting to the root of what is leading to the increases in crime, et cetera. And we're still here having these conversations. I think Marino makes a really good point. We feel as though, more of us, I think, feel as though that social contract of, if I'm having a problem, I call 911, has begun to break down a little bit. Kathy, good morning. What do you think?
Good morning. I'm number 126, by the way.
Well, welcome aboard. Farwell's Force member number 126.
Thank you. I'm looking at it from a woman's perspective and an older woman's perspective. Am I going to walk around with a can of bear spray in my hand all the time? Because if somebody wants to victimize me, they'll have theirs ready. I won't.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if I've got it in my purse, by the time I fish it out of my purse, I've already been attacked, right?
Right.
Good luck at me trying to get that out and protect myself. I think it would be more likely that somebody would use it to disable me. And the other thing that concerns me is what goes on down in the States. People get a little ticked off about the way somebody did this or did that, and they immediately pull out their guns. I think that same type of thing would happen here. You tick somebody off in a crowd, the next thing you know, they're going to bear spray you. I think it's bizarre. We can't protect ourselves from everything in this world. We take precautions. We try to be careful. You cannot protect yourself from everything. And that's the way I feel about it.
Kathy, very well said, and I appreciate the perspective on that from one of our female listeners today. And that's kind of what I alluded to when I landed on the no side of this, because the more accessible it is, the more people that have it. And Kathy says, I think the person that's wanting to use it for nefarious purposes is going to have the upper hand on me. Chris, I got like 30 seconds hard.
Okay.
Go, you got to go. Go 30 seconds, now 25.
Okay. No, I'm talking about the pepper spray, and I don't think they should be doing that. I think they should be giving out the alarm buttons, the loud alarm button.
Yeah.
And because if the kids get a hold of these pepper spray things, they're going to be using them on each other. They're not going to be able to be controlled.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns. And I'm sorry for being so rushed. When I say 30 seconds hard, we got to hustle because I got to get to the news center on time, which is where I'm headed right now. Thanks for your input on this conversation. Maybe you'll want to weigh in on the next one, too. Why is this government in Ontario making it so hard for us to access information? That's next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It has been quite the week for Ontario Premier Doug Ford. I heard one other commentator describe it as flooding the zone. So many things coming out of the Premier's mouth this week. We talked about pepper spray in the last half hour, the Premier's request to our federal government to legalize pepper spray for increasingly concerned Ontarians who are worried about their personal safety. We've got the BYOB rules for specific events coming up later this year, just loosening the alcohol restrictions, the idea that people driving in vehicles on their own can go into the high occupancy vehicle lanes on our highways at certain hours of the day. That's just this week. Going back to last week, the Ontario government put out a message that it was updating its cybersecurity, privacy, and access framework to align more closely with jurisdictions across Canada. And reading directly from the Ontario government's media release, I quote, "After nearly 40 years, we are modernizing Ontario's privacy protections and bringing the province's technology practices into the 21st century. These updates will strengthen cybersecurity, protect cabinet confidentiality, and ensure responsible modern governance." Now, on this idea of protecting cabinet confidentiality, the aligning of this province's Freedom of Information framework, according to the provincial government, says, excluding the records of the Premier, cabinet ministers, parliamentary assistants, and their offices under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Ontario is currently one of only 2 jurisdictions in Canada without explicit protections for records belonging to cabinet ministers or their offices. So don't try that Freedom of Information request. Cabinet privilege is being upheld by the Office of the Premier of Ontario. Salvatore Cusimano is the Executive Director of Transparency International Canada, joins us to talk more about this. Salvatore, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks very much for making the time. I've gone to some degree of depth there to describe what it is the province is doing. What do you make of this claim that what the province is doing in this regard is modernizing our Freedom of Information rules?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the quote I heard was that the current law has been there since before the Spice Girls were a thing. Well, the Spice Girls also said stop right now, and that's what we think we should do about these proposed changes. Because look, a good law stands the test of time, and of course you can always improve them, but that's not a reason in itself to change a law. You did mention that this idea of aligning the Ontario law with other jurisdictions. I mean, first of all, if we're going to say that rolling back transparency in government in Ontario is being done to bring us in line with other provinces and territories and the feds, well, our response to that would be, why shouldn't they come up to our standard if we do have higher standards? And I would just say that's not entirely clear that we do have higher standards of transparency. And also, the cabinet records under our current law, the FIPA as it's known, the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, there are exemptions already for cabinet records. There are exemptions as well for personal information because it's the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. So, in there, it's already built in, and, that's why it's raising a lot of questions for folks like us, Transparency International Canada, who really believe that government should be more open, more accountable to citizens, and not less.
How does this proposal make the Ontario government less accountable and transparent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I think a lot of people who see this think, well, a Freedom of Information request, it sounds very technical, but actually those have been very powerful, not only in our province, but across Canada and around the world. And, we, as Transparency International, we're the Canadian chapter of a global organization. And when my colleagues around the world heard about this, they said, you need to say something. You need to step up, because those Freedom of Information requests, sure, they can sound technical. There can be, oftentimes you kind of need to know the system to know how to file them and how to get the right information. But at the end of the day, they do, and they have revealed wrongdoing in public life. And I'd point out not just within this government, because there have been cases on this government's watch, but under previous governments. Everyone knows the famous gas plant scandal in Ontario that took place under previous Liberal governments. These requests, by making records free, they enable us to know what's going on. And so, again, there's already exemptions for the cabinet. And what this would do, though, is just cut out a wide swath of information that's currently accessible, again, subject to exemptions. But frankly speaking, the government, I think it was Premier Ford himself, said something like, you should judge our decisions, not how we reach them. Well, in public life, it's actually extremely important to know how decisions about our public funds, our taxpayer money, is reached, because that's how you ensure there are no conflicts of interest, which can raise the price of delivering, let's say, a subway line in Toronto here. I think there have been LRT in Kitchener and other places being considered where, it did matter who's actually being able to bid and on what terms, because it's also bad for business when these kind of processes are opaque. So those are some of the ways that we see this law being a real danger to transparency. But it's the scope, and it's also the process, which would would increase the amount of time that government has to respond to a request, reducing the quickness with which citizens can get it. There's more ability for the government they're proposing to appeal decisions, and really importantly, there's an independent information commissioner right now who can actually compel or force the government to release certain records. They're trying to take away that power, and again, a key principle of that law is that decisions about government information and disclosing it should be reviewed independently of government. If you take that away, you're just kind of pulling out all the stops on an independent check on power. I hope that explains.
What benefits, Salvador, do we realize as a community when we have strong right to information laws?
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the word right, because again, the freedom of information, it can sound a bit technical sometimes, but it's actually a right. When we talk about our politicians, they're actually more like our employees than they are like our bosses. I think sometimes politicians do think that, well, I was elected to lead, and so I'm the boss of this country or province. Well, actually, it's the other way around. And if you're a business owner, I think that what's happening with the money that you're kind of paying employees with, or giving them to buy cell phones and communicate with clients, for example. I think as a business owner, you'd say, well, I have a right to know what you're talking about. I have a right to know how you're spending my money. That's why here we talk about the right to information. And so when you do anything to limit that, if you say, well, I don't think that my public phone records should be my private phone records should be subject to this public scrutiny. Well, you're working on our time, sir, and we do have a right to know. So that's a really key principle here.
Salvatore, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Salvatore Cusimano is the executive director at Transparency International Canada. It's a nonpartisan, independent Canadian country chapter of the global anti-corruption organization, Transparency International. And I think that Salvatore makes it pretty clear here the concerns that Transparency International Canada has with these changes to information laws and freedom to that information here in Ontario. And I love the point about, as opposed to saying that Ontario is one of only two jurisdictions in Canada, the other being Nova Scotia, without explicit protections for records belonging to cabinet ministers or their offices, instead of saying we're going to align sort of in a regressive way with all of those other provinces and territories, why not tell those other provinces and territories or show those other provinces and territories that you're leading the way in access to this information? And I can absolutely get behind this idea that elected officials are not our employers. They work for us. And I don't want to get into this whole, who's got the authority argument here or idea here. But that is the truth. Here's an example I would love to share, and it hits right here at home for us in Waterloo Region. I want to know what is contained in the Fen Sealing report. Do you remember that report? Our former regional chair, Ken Sealing, and Michael Fenn, I believe was from the Niagara area. Anyway, those two gentlemen who have deep experience in municipal governance put together a report on our two-tier municipal systems in this province. Niagara, York, Waterloo, a host of others. And we have not, to this day, and this goes back how many years? It was just after Ken Sealing left office, so we're going back to 2018, right? It's just, this report has been sitting on a shelf somewhere at Queen's Park, or it's in a box somewhere in an archive, and we have never been privy to its contents. And this is why it bothers me. First of all, it pertains to how we govern ourselves here in the region and maybe offers suggestions as to how we could do better. And yes, I'm a pro-amalgamation guy, always have been. I'll take that bias out of it. The bottom line is, this is a report that Ken Sealing and Michael Fenn were paid for. And I'm not begrudging them whatever they were paid, but who paid them? The provincial government did. How does the provincial government get money to pay people? We pay taxes. That's our money that paid for this report that we are now not allowed to see. How is that a thing? Honest to goodness, how is that a thing? We paid to commission the report. How do we not get to know what is included in it? And I guess I'm getting into the weeds a little bit here, but I don't understand how anything that an elected government does in a democracy should be shielded from the people who elected those individuals to make those decisions. We should be part of the process all the way along. And listen, how many people are actually paying that much attention? We got a lot to do. We're just trying to put roast beef and mashed potatoes on the table, right? Maybe some gravy on a good week on Sunday night. You're not going to have people you will have some, but it's not going to be a mass of people poring over every detail. If we are regressing when it comes to the amount of information that is being made available to us, regressing from where we even are, which I don't think is open and transparent enough, I've got a sincere problem with this. To that end of the Fenn Sealing report on municipal governance and our two-tier system of municipal government here in the region, Ontario Premier Doug Ford was asked about that yesterday when he was in Kenilworth up by Arthur making an announcement. And, well, you know what? I'll tell you, right after this break, two things, okay? We'll hear from the Premier on what the future of Waterloo Region might look like. It's an election year. Are we going to make changes to this system here in our region? Will we still elect regional councillors, or will we just appoint a chair and then have the mayors join that appointed chair on some sort of regional board instead of a regional government? You'll hear the Premier's answer and your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. Coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You work hard, right? I know you work hard, but I wonder if you work as hard as Crystal Waite and Anthony Lopez. Every day around this time on the show, we like to take a moment to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. And don't worry, I'm getting to the Premier's comments about what might happen here with our regional government before the election on October the 26th. But your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. And you know, not all heroes wear capes either. If you'll forgive the reminder, the pandemic taught us that not every essential worker is a frontline medical worker or emergency responder. And during last week's big blizzard in Rhode Island, New York, Crystal Waite and Anthony Lopez, two employees at a gas bar and convenience store, became among the most essential workers on the island.
There were so many people. We thought we weren't going to have anybody here.
A lot of people walking too. I would say over 1.5 miles they were walking because we were the only place on the island open.
By the end of the night, our grocery aisle, our freezer, this was empty.
The plow guys needed gas. They stood around for a few hours. They walked around just to stay warm.
It didn't really hit me until a day like that. that we were like, the plow drivers need us.
We opened a cafe for them to serve coffee.
A lot of people just grabbing whatever they could off of here, trying to stay warm.
If we weren't open, they would have had no safe place to go, to relax, walk around, even get gas, food. Absolutely 100% essential.
Waite and Lopez came to work at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. And because all those customers kept coming, some walking for a mile and a half, they stayed open and on shift until 7 o'clock on Tuesday morning. That is 36 hours straight for your shift at the gas bar and convenience store.
It felt good. That was the biggest part. It felt good to help people. Like, that's what I always say. It's the best part of this job.
The best part of this job is just helping people and reminding us, thanks to Crystal Waite and Anthony Lopez of Rhode Island, New York, that not everybody is a jackwagon. Every day around 10:20, like to remind you of that. If you know somebody who is not a jackwagon, by all means, drop me an email, mike@570news.com. Would love to share their story as well. Ontario Premier Doug Ford was in our area-ish yesterday, up near Arthur, making an announcement. And the good thing, what I learned early on in this business as a reporter is you go to an announcement where a leader is present, in this case, the premier of the province, and he does his spiel, and he tells you how great the announcement is and how great his government is and all of these other things. And then you get a chance to ask questions. And you do not have to ask questions specific to that particular announcement. And so the experienced reporters at this announcement in Kenilworth, up near Arthur yesterday, asked about the Premier's plans for two-tier municipal governments in this province, because there's been all kinds of rumblings out there. I'm led to believe that in York Region, this has already happened, where there's going to be an appointed chair for York Region, and regional councillors will not be elected anymore. There was all kinds of talk about that down Niagara way. That has faded a little bit now, and the former appointed chair has resigned his position. But what's going to happen here? Are we going to have an appointed chair in October, and will our regional council just be made up of elected mayors? We won't be directly electing regional councillors anymore this October? Well, here's what the Premier had to say about the possibility of regional amalgamations.
We're reviewing right across the province, and again, our Minister of Housing will be announcing some changes, but it's always good to get rid of politicians. We have too many as far as I'm concerned. Give you an example in Niagara Region. Folks, for 500,000 people, they have 126 elected officials. I don't even think they know what they're doing there. 126. To put it in perspective, the whole province has 124 MPPs. In Little Niagara Region, they have 126 elected officials, so we have to streamline it. If you ask someone who the regional councillor is, they probably couldn't even tell you. But they know who their mayor is, because the mayor is the most important. So we're going to look at saving taxpayers money, and then they go and start giving double-digit tax increases. Unacceptable. They're wasting money. So we're going to streamline that. But we said to the mayors, if you don't lead it, you don't want to do it, then that's fine. But I need a majority of the mayors to either go for 4 regions. I think there's 11 different townships there. Cut it down to 4 or 1. Well, a few of them melted like chocolate soldiers. And I always say it's like asking the turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. They aren't voting for Thanksgiving, I can assure you that. So we'll step in and streamline it and make sure there's an efficient government running, because it's all about protecting the taxpayers' money.
The turkeys around here haven't voted for Thanksgiving either. We have been reluctant to make any change ourselves internally. Maybe the province will step in. Too many politicians is a bad thing. We have 59 local politicians. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Hookah shaka, hookah, hookah. just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing.
It is that Thursday morning feeling, isn't it? It's that final day of winter feeling. Hey, winter, get the... Wait a minute, I can't say that on the radio. I really want to say that on the radio because I am not going to miss you, winter. I will not. But I do miss, in betwixt his appearances on this show, our good friend and humor columnist, Gary Chalk. He joins us Thursday mornings at this time to bring his humor column, Living Retired, to life here on the show. It's Living Retired on the radio. And if you want to get Living Retired elsewhere, like in your inbox, just go to livingretired.press and sign up for the weekly newsletter. While you're there, get in touch with Gary. He is more than happy to bring his unique style to the event that you are putting on. Corporate events, retirement parties, service club appearances, you name it. Gary is here every Thursday, and he's anywhere else you want him to be because he's that kind of guy. Mr. Chalk, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Hey, do you want me to say that word on the radio?
You know, I've learned this, Gary. You can say anything you want on the radio once. So, if you would like to take that bullet for the team, it's entirely up to you, sir.
Hey, it's sort of like marriage. You can say anything to your wife once.
That's right. Then you learn, don't you?
Oh, I have. My gosh. I sure hope I can make it through this program today. Last week I was fighting that cold, and my throat was tickling, and the more that I was trying to suppress a cough, the worse it got. And boy, I had the streams of water coming down my cheek, that's for sure.
I'm glad you made it, and you're back out of sick bay.
Well, yeah, I am. But I mean, you know, that cold... as I say, I almost couldn't finish the show. That thing lasted longer than the eaves trough salesman who was on my porch last summer trying to convince me I needed to have some new eaves troughs. And when I told Jan, I had this thing for about 3 weeks. After about a week or so, I said, you know, Jan, I'm achy, I'm cold all over. I can't get out of bed. It's the worst cold ever. And I hope you never get it that bad. Didn't go down well. She shrugged and she said, Gary, you have man cold. Women, we call it a slight cough.
I knew that was coming, Gary. I didn't want to, because we're buddies. I wasn't going to accuse you of having the man cold, but I have had it many a time myself.
Yeah. So, you know, you're sitting there in bed, you're it's nonstop groaning and complaining, and she does have a point about man cold. You know, when I get that dry, stuffy nose, or even worse, when I had that cough, I just sit in my pajamas in bed, and then I call her. That's when it starts to go downhill. I call to see if she'll come to the room. And, well, you know, here's why you shouldn't do it. From my bed, I said, Jan, can you come? And the first time she came, she pranced in. She said, oh, it's Nurse Jan here. Well, that didn't last very long. I said, Nurse Jan, I need some comfort food. I don't need things that are healthy. I need things like ginger ale, and I want Canada Dry, not diet. And I said, I want a craft dinner. I don't want the other knockoffs. I want regular flavor craft dinner. I said, I'd like some orange juice. Tropicana works. I don't want the added sugar. I don't mind the extra pulp. She's jotting these things down, starting to look at me. Then I said some frozen sherbet, not sorbet, not yogurt, not gelato. It's got to be sherbet. And then it got worse because all I said was, I like rainbow sherbet, raspberry, orange, and lime. I don't want that tropical island or passion fruit or whatever it is. And at that point, I fell back against the pillow, and I closed my watery eyes, and I said, Jan, when I don't feel well, I usually eat soda crackers. I eat like Nabisco saltines, not the no-names. I don't want any sea salt. I want originals. And then I opened my eyes. She'd gone. She'd left me alone in sickness. What kind of woman, nurse, would do that?
Well, she knew you were resting comfortably, right?
Oh, Okay, well,
Okay.
that's it. So the good news, I'm slowly becoming better. The bad news, yesterday, Jan said she wasn't feeling well. And I said, oh, my gosh, hope you don't come down with a man cold, because it'll be the worst ever. She said, no, I'm just sick of you, Gary. Oh, my gosh. I don't know. Do you feed a cold, starve a fever? What's that old wives' tale?
That's the one. My great-grandma taught me that. Feed a cold, starve a fever. She also said a cold is 7 days coming, 7 days here, and 7 days leaving. So I always worry about that, too. That's 21 whole days, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, I know when I was a kid, the treatment that my mother, I think it was camphor oil. It was this thick, gooey, it was almost like molasses, and she'd rub it on my chest, stuck to everything. Heaven forbid if I laid face down in the bed, I'd suffocate because I couldn't turn over because I'd stuck.
Get stuck.
Yeah, exactly. And Mom always said, you need to rest with a book. Well, nowadays, rest is a TV remote. And the other thing they keep saying now, the experts, is you got to drink lots of water. Now, I'm living retired, Mike. That is counterintuitive. The more water I drink, the more I got to get up during the night. The more I have to get up during the night, the more I trip over the decorator pillows I threw on the floor in order to get to bed.
Those decorator pillows are always getting in your way.
Always. So I did finally break down, went to the pharmacy, and man, I'm telling you, they got decongestants, cough suppressants, expectorants, antihistamines, pain, fever reducer. You can get extra strength, non-drowsy, sugar-free, daytime, nighttime, 24-hour relief, one called Complete, all-in-one, liquid, gel caps, easy to swallow. I got sick just looking at all these things. I don't know what to do. But the other thing, I need to tell you this one, Mike. When I was a kid, I'm quite proud of the fact that I, surprisingly, was very good at coming down with some sort of a mysterious imaginary illness that would prevent me from having to go to school. I had a system down pat. What I would do, I would open my parents' medicine chest, I would read the symptoms on the containers, and I'd go all through these containers, and I'd read, and then finally I would get one that I thought would work, and I'd sort of memorize what the symptoms were on that container label. Then I'd go to my mom, and I'd spout off these symptoms, and she'd say, oh, my gosh, Gary, you're describing a sore throat. You better stay in your pajamas and don't go to school. I'll get you some children's Tylenol from the medicine cabinet. It sort of worked like a charm.
It's perfect.
Yeah. My sickness strategy didn't go as planned one time. I read the symptoms on the medication in my parents' bathroom medicine cabinet, and I sort of memorized what the symptoms were, and I went and I said, Mom, I have a throbbing, cramping pain in my stomach, sort of a dull, continuous ache that sometimes goes down into my lower back, and I'm also experiencing mood swings. She said, Gary, that's impossible. I'm not giving you something for PMS. Next, you're going to tell me you have a urinary tract infection.
Don't just read the symptoms on the bottles in the medicine cabinet. Go for the children's Tylenol illness, and that'll get you a day off school. Gary Chalk joins us Thursday mornings, 10:30 for Living Retired. That's his humor column you can find online, livingretired.press. And we do Living Retired on the radio every Thursday morning at this time. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, final day of winter. That means spring starts tomorrow. You might be thinking of, getting all that salt residue rinsed off your car. The automatic car wash, you say. Gary's got some things to say about that coming up as we continue Living Retired on the radio. It's part of the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This is the time of week you get to enjoy a little bit of Living Retired on the radio. Living Retired is a humor column written by our good friend Gary Chalk. You can find that column online at livingretired.press. While you're there, sign up to have it delivered directly into your inbox. It's a great way to start the week. Get a little chuckle. And Gary joins us to bring the column to the radio each and every Thursday morning just after the 10:30 news. You can bring Gary to your event as well, be it a service club or other corporate event, just by going to livingretired.press and getting in touch with Gary there. I hope, Gary, that you at Living Retired headquarters are all set for the arrival of spring tomorrow.
Yeah, I am. I've checked the sump pump, so that's good. And the thing is, of course, got to clean the vehicle. Do you wash your car in the driveway? You know, get a bucket of soapy water and a hose and some rags and things, or do you go to the automatic car wash?
I wash my car in New Hamburg with my good buddy Downsy at Maple Leaf Car Cleaning. That's how I wash my car, Gary.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Is it sort of like an automatic thing you drive through?
No, it's Ron doing the work.
Wow.
Yes, and let me tell you, you get washed, sauced, and glossed over there, my friend.
Boy, I'm going to have to make an appointment.
Yep.
I remember when I was a kid, I told my dad, I made an agreement with him. I said, Dad, if you'll let me have the car every Saturday night, I will wash the car on Saturday afternoon so I can go out on a date.
That seems like a great idea.
Yeah, good deal. He gets a clean car, and there I am. So, well, I had a problem. There was some sort of hand wax in those days. I don't think it was turtle, whatever. It was in a round can, and the instructions were that you were to brush the wax on your car using a small circular motion with the sort of the foam attachment that was on the lid of this thing. And you were to brush it all over in all these small little circles, and then let it dry for 15 minutes. Then take a rag and buff it clean. Mike, I made two mistakes. Not one, two.
Uh-oh.
First, I didn't read the instructions because it said that you should never do it in the bright sunlight. The second one said to very gently buff the wax off when it dried. Of course, as a kid, I didn't read the instructions, and I was doing it in the hot sun of an August afternoon, probably for an hour. It came time to, as they say, very, very gently remove that coat with the rags. I got out my dad's Black & Decker electric drill because it had this attachment you could put on that was sort of like a soft buffing thingamajig. And I thought, that'll be good. Plugged it in the outlet out in my dad's garage, and then I started to remove the wax, the dried wax. Mike, in the end, I did remove the dried wax, and in the end, the white paint on Dad's 1965 Chev hood was sort of the color of the metal underneath the paint.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling that's where you were headed with this one.
Well, where were you when I needed you? Oh, dear. All this to say, I never asked to borrow my dad's car again to go on a date, and since then I haven't washed my cars by hand. I go to the automatic car wash. So last week, we had some really nice days, if you remember, and I had that bad man cold, and I was just itching to get out of the house. So it was a lovely morning. Jumped in the car. Now, I do, first of all, need to apologize to all the Farwell Force listeners. I hope none of you were behind me at that automatic car wash, because if you were, you'll recognize I was the living retired klutz who couldn't find the ticket that the attendant instructed me, sir. When you reach the entrance, you just lean out your window and enter these 4 or 5 digits codes. Sounded easy enough.
It should be easy, Gary, except for somebody living retired, perhaps.
That's right. Well, there were 6 cars in front of me, and I think it maybe takes about 5 minutes or so per wash. So every few minutes I'd move forward another car, and every few minutes I'd move forward again, and of course the cars lined up behind me as well. Then I got to the entrance, and this is when it really took the turn for the worse. I rolled the window down to reach out to enter the code, and whoosh, gust of wind. I swear, Mike, it was like the Boer winds in the Adriatic blew. That itty-bitty piece of paper with the code, it blew away.
Can't have that, Gary. You can't have that.
Oh, my gosh. I glanced at my lap, looked over in the passenger side, nothing. I couldn't blame Jan because she wasn't in the car. I I was in dire straits. Then it started to go even more downhill. Honk, honk, honk. Driver behind me, he's anxious, and he's got his window open. He's pointing at me to roll my window down and enter the code. Well, he was anxious. So that was a non-starter, because what happened was I went to open the door so I could enter the code, so I could at least find the card where the code was on. I was so close to the machine I couldn't open the door. So then what I did, as the honking is becoming even more, I mean, it's desperate measures, call for desperate things, I climbed over top the gear shift console to get out over on the passenger door side. It was like I was playing Twister, but by myself. I did a face plant. My upper body made it through. I'm over on the passenger side. My legs are flailing over on the driver's side. Eventually, I crawled out onto the pavement on the passenger door side. I'm down on all fours. I got up. Of course, I had to walk in front of the car behind me with the anxious driver. And I sort of gave him a sheepish smile. And, I think he stared at me. I just couldn't look. Now the cars are even growing more in length and numbers. They're all honking the corn. You know what? I found the ticket.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was in plain view. It had blown under my brake pedal. Now all I had to do was get back in the car. So go once again back in front of the guy behind me. I didn't even look at him. I was so embarrassed. And, of course, I had to play Twister, but in reverse. I got back in, did the face plant over the gear shift, got in top, and took the ticket. And then I did something that I found out what's good about an automatic car wash. When you drive in and the door closes behind you and all the machinery and the brushes start going, you can't hear any honking or hecklers.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful
peace
thing.
and quiet.
Peace and quiet. And, what was that guy you said you go to? What's his name?
Ron Downs, Maple Leaf Car Cleaning, Gary.
And where?
New Hamburg.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to tell my friend Lou. Lou is a good friend of mine. He's got one of those big Ford pickup trucks, and he went to one of those automatic car washes. I think it was in Cambridge. And this one, you drive up, you roll your window down. You don't have to worry about losing a little ticket with the number on it so you can enter. You just start going on the screen and then swipe your credit card. But here was the problem. He could select, and you had to. This was like a menu of items. It didn't stop. He could either get the unlimited, or a premium, or a regular car wash. Then to that, you could also add high pressure wash. For a couple of extra bucks, you could get some undercar spray. You could even have extra suds. It was, I think, another $1.50. You could have your tires cleaned. Then there was a selection. You'd have a spot-free rinse. You could add, for an extra fee, rust inhibitor, foam polish, a wax sealant. Well, while this is all going out, trying to select all these features and decline the ones he didn't want. Of course, the lineups of cars behind him is growing. Finally, he pressed ready to pay, and on came, it was $79 for his car wash. Oh, my God. Well, Lou has learned his lesson. You do not ask for assistance by pressing the button. You just pay the $79.
That's it. And then get out of the way because everybody's getting anxious.
You got it. Well, he pressed the need assistance button, and on came some person. Lou couldn't hear him because all the drivers behind are honking their horn.
Gary, all we want is a clean car for the spring. Yeah.
Horns, they need to be eliminated from automatic car wash.
Perfect. And then we'll have everything we need in place. No more horns at the automatic car wash.
No horns, no hecklers, and away you go, and everything's clean.
Gary, keep it clean. Talk to you soon.
Have a good one. Go Rangers.
Gary Chalk joins us every Thursday morning, just after the 10:30 news for Living Retired on the radio. Don't forget, you can find Living Retired online. That's Gary's humor column, livingretired.press. While you're there, sign up to have the column delivered to your inbox on a weekly basis. Get in touch with Gary, too, and he'll be happy to bring that kind of style and humor to your corporate event, service club, whatever it may be. Gary Chalk with Living Retired on the radio, Thursday mornings here on the Mike Farwell Show. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk heritage and the conservation of it in Cambridge. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Let's talk heritage here on the show for a bit, and specifically the Heritage Conservation District that is being discussed and debated in Cambridge when it comes to the core of Galt. Nick Borchescu is the Supervisor of Heritage Planning and Housing Planning and Growth within Planning Services at the City of Cambridge and joins us in studio this morning. Nick, thanks for being here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Why a Heritage Conservation District in Galt? What does such a district accomplish?
Well, I think the better question is to start with why a Heritage Conservation District in general, and then we'll get to the Galt core itself. But typically, Heritage Conservation Districts bring an elevated status of knowledge and experience and livability and overall lifestyle to an area that has been selected, clearly identified and designated as being of certain value, importance towards the growth of its immediate neighborhood, but also the growth of the city within which it's located. And there are over 151 heritage districts clear across Ontario, of which 64 are in city cores, and they're all very successful with proven track record. Now, for Galt itself, the initial study that was started in 2021 and went on, and it's still ongoing really because the district plan has not been enacted, so it's still in conversations, is based on a variety of factors, including historical association in the area, architecture, the vernacular local architecture that is so unique to Galt nationwide, Galt being one of the areas that has the highest concentration of granite masonry structures in almost intact form from back in the 1800s, but also the integrity of the place itself, not having been modified to the point where you lose that sense of place and that sense of history that you're within and enveloped as you walk around the Galt core. Also, there's the question of the landmark and the cultural heritage landscape of the area itself, with the vistas, with the topography that makes this place so unique, with the river on one side and almost like an escarpment boundaring it on the east side of the of Galt core. So that alone is a very good starting point for having a conversation as to the value and the maintaining of this area and its integrity.
I'm sure anybody that's lived in this community for more than 5 minutes recognizes the striking beauty, frankly, of the Galt core in Cambridge. If we, or as we, move forward with a Heritage Conservation District, Nick, what does that mean for development in Galt, in the core?
Well, development is something that's supported and very well guided and preserved within a heritage district in general, but in Galt, the proposed plan for the heritage district speaks to contributing and non-contributing properties. And when the question comes up with about properties that are not contributing and why are we not developing these properties, why are we not increasing either density or units of livability, residential, add more commercial, a district plan in general will support and guide this development along with its well thought out planning so that the essence of what the district plan is all about, its general associations and its attributes are preserved and maintained and respected, but at the same time, a sense of the time architecture is welcome.
What do you mean by that?
Well, let's look, for example, at properties that are either derelict or abandoned or, for whatever reason, unused. If a property was to be considered for demolition or if a property was to be considered for development, within a heritage district, the heritage staff generally will help guide, aid, and assist in the early development of architectural design, of urban planning and design, to ensure that the overall character is still being respected, but the new property that is being developed or the new insertion of architecture that is being brought into an area is beyond the respectful of its characters and surroundings, is a product of its time, and it is an independent standalone element that contributes to the furthering of the district plan's overall attributes.
What parameters are placed around that development then? Because I'm thinking of downtown Kitchener as an example, and I know there's no heritage conservation district in the immediate downtown, but we've got, 30, 40, some proposed 50-story condominium towers being built there. What parameters will be around what can be built in the core of Galt?
The district plan does not speak to restrictions on height or density. Those are issues that fall under zoning, and they're particularly independent to the area where a development is being proposed. Within a district plan, the intent of the heritage staff and of the city who has put together this district plan and its guidelines and policies is primarily to help guide and respect the character of the surroundings. So if the property that is being developed or proposed is within an area of certain height, density, or certain setbacks, those would come into play first. But of course, again, those fall under zoning. As far as the heritage components go, there's a certain level of understanding towards the respect of the architecture and the surroundings, but also there's a very clear understanding that you can contrast and certainly play against existing architectural styles or architectural typology by bringing in something more modern and could, as an example, the library, the post office, the library in Hespeler, these are properties that are obviously designated heritage properties that have had interventions that are very modern in their approach, and they contrast and juxtapose against the heritage fabric of the original building still on site. So that respectful play in architecture, in cultural approach, in sustainability of the buildings that are there is a great part of how a heritage district plan works and how heritage staff assists in development of proposed projects.
You mentioned earlier, Nick, that this is something that began in 2021. The conversation is ongoing. If I were a property owner in the core of Galt, where we are talking about creating this heritage conservation district, what impacts are there on the properties I already own?
Well, I can start with the positive impacts. Once a property is designated, either within a heritage district or designated individually, and the city is in the process of designating the inventory that we have right now of listed properties before we lose them at the end of this year. But there are grants available to homeowners and to property owners right off the bat as soon as designation is in place. And these grants help assist in maintenance, in conservation, restoration projects, and upkeep of the property, which is then reflected in the values overall within a heritage district as to how those properties are of higher value than counterparts outside of heritage districts, primarily where lack of pride in the heritage component is manifested, but also without additional funds, it's kind of hard to have this impetus to show your pride in your property by upkeeping and maintaining it. Other things that would come into effect would be a very clear understanding of dealing with properties that are either falling apart due to neglect or to various other factors, assistance, again, from the city for maintenance and repairs in case of acts of God, emergency issues like lightning strikes, fire, what have you, where heritage properties would have access, the owners would have access to additional assistance for this fact. But in terms of the overall upkeep and the area's look and presentation, heritage bylaws are in effect to ensure that properties are maintained to a level that is functional and also that is aesthetically pleasing to the rest of the district. So, of course, all surrounding neighbors would prefer that they have properties whereby not just the neighborhood looks at status or content of the individual properties, but also by law enforcement does as well.
We talked earlier about buildings that may fall into disrepair, may become derelict. If I were somebody looking to develop or purchase one of those properties and bring it back to life, how much more expensive is that for me when it's within a heritage conservation district?
Location within a district is irrelevant to the content or the reconstruction of a building. It can be within or outside of a district. It can be designated individually, or it could be a standalone building on its own. The property owner chooses how they wish to develop and reconstruct their own property. And that also goes to insurance, if you'd like to speak about that later on as well. But there is no mechanism by which you have to, as a homeowner or a property owner, district or designated or otherwise, that you have to replace elements that have fallen into disrepair or are altogether unfeasible to repair and must be replaced, to replace them with like for like or with the exact same level of craftsmanship or materials. In essence, heritage preservation and conservation is about maintaining that which is there. If that element is gone, no amount of replacing is going to bring it back. It is gone. It was the heritage element. And so its replacement, be it modern or be it of the same vintage look and feel, is entirely up to the property owner.
How much more does it cost for insurance within such a district?
We are aware, clear across Ontario, and I say we in terms of the Heritage Planners Network and all the heritage colleagues that I have across Ontario, that over the last 3 years in particular, due to Bill 23 and the potential of losing all the listed properties on heritage registers clear across Ontario, that as municipalities and townships strive to protect and extend designation under Part 4 of properties, insurance companies come back to the owners and say, if you get designated, we will not insure you. And that is based quite a bit on misinformation and misunderstanding. Under the Heritage Act, there is no mechanism to force, again, replacement of any particular lost heritage attribute with the exact same. So that already comes out of the conversation flat out. Insurance is normally based on age, on condition, on materials, on status and its craftsmanship of the particular building, structure, or individual elements. But it is a conversation between the property owner and their insurance provider. So the same as you would create your insurance policy for your property to include jewelry, for example, those are specifics, or the non-functioning Aston Martin in your grandfather's garage, or other elements that are unique by nature. It is the choice of the property owner to extend specific insurance coverage and replacement value to those elements. And that's a conversation between them and their broker. It is not the city, and it's certainly not the Heritage Act that would demand that sort of conversation take place. In fact, to quote from a document that the province of Ontario has put out, it says, the intent of designation is to preserve the historic physical, contextual, and other heritage value of a property. If a heritage building or attribute is completely or partially destroyed, the designation bylaw does not require the owner to replicate or reconstruct. The replacement can be of a different design and can be of different materials or type. So that in itself should go straight to insurance brokers and conversations with agents and the individual property owners to have that conversation and to understand that there is no added cost in heritage designation as far as insurance goes. The cost is solely based on what is being protected and how it's being replaced.
I think we all recognize, Nick, that the wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly, and we've mentioned here that this conversation began in 2021. Here we are in 2026. The conversations continue. What is it that you suppose makes it so difficult to implement a heritage conservation district such as the one we're talking about in Galt?
From my experience, and my experience is limited here at Cambridge, I've only been here just less than a year. The conversations we've had with the property owners and with residents of the city of Cambridge at the, I think, 6 open houses so far that I've attended, primarily it's addressing common myths and certainly fears that the residents and property owners have in regards to change. One of the biggest concerns is a question of whether or not the city will take over the property once it's in a heritage designated area, or if the property itself is designated. And that's, of course, not an issue. The city does not take over properties just solely through proposed designation. But in districts in general, there's a misunderstanding as to how much involvement the city will have in proposed alterations, modifications, and even general maintenance and upkeep. Like, for example, replacement of windows and doors or roofing, which is probably the single most expensive activity that a homeowner can or a property owner can undertake when owning a property. And the fear of being told that you must replace the windows with hardwood windows or doors, or that the roofing must only be replaced with specific materials. That is not the case. In heritage districts, there are guidelines and policies that speak to materials and conservation and restoration practices. Guidelines are exactly that. It's to guide someone along. It is not an imposition. It's certainly not a requirement. Policies, on the other hand, will speak to specifics, but none of those address materials or replacement or cost, certainly not.
Nick, I appreciate you making the time to share your knowledge with us today, give us some perspective on what we're doing in the core of Galt. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nick Borchescu is the Supervisor of Heritage Planning and Housing Planning and Growth within the Planning Services Department at the City of Cambridge. Joins us this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are fast approaching 11:30. An update in the 570 News Center, and then we go on our quest to find the perfect cookie. But that's coming up. Right now, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work, quite frankly, done by the folks at the City of Kitchener and their event staff in putting on an event yesterday, right smack in the middle of March break, to give families a destination. It wasn't the warmest day, but it wasn't the coldest. It wasn't a blizzard outside, and it's great to be outdoors. It's great to be around others in our community. And the City of Kitchener offered a free, F-R-E-E, free, my favorite F word, free event in downtown Kitchener for families to enjoy. The city did have participation from our local hockey club, the Kitchener Rangers, which I know is always a drawing card. And it was quite the afternoon in downtown Kitchener, right out front City Hall in Carl Zare Square, where the Rangers were there to engage in a fun ball hockey tournament against one another. So members of the team played against other members of the team. And then in between games, the players took the time to sign autographs, and you should have seen the lineups for autographs. It was absolutely incredible stuff. Full marks to these young men who obviously could have been doing different things, but were there out with their community members, their fans, and I thought the players were terrific with the fans yesterday, acknowledging how much the support means. It was so great to see. And then just all around Carl Zare Square, the activity, the excitement, the energy that was there, just full marks all around. And I'll just remind you on that point about, like, it seemed very sincere to me. I don't think there was an insincere bone in anyone's body when these players were thanking the community, those fans who were there yesterday, for supporting them through this season. We have ourselves a first place hockey club here in Kitchener. The first place in the Western Conference is all wrapped up for the playoffs. So we're going to have home ice all the way through until the OHL championship if we last that long through the playoffs. And the fan support is like that extra man on the ice. So you showed up yesterday in downtown Kitchener for a great event, the downtown showdown with the Kitchener Rangers. And I hope you show up at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. We'll play a regular season game again, obviously the final home game of the regular season tomorrow night, and then the playoffs open in a week. But these fellas love the support, and I would love to see you give it back like you have been all season and like you did yesterday. Kudos to the city. Kudos to the Kitchener Rangers for really embodying this spirit of being a community-owned team. Fantastic stuff all around, and I just wanted to take a moment to mention that. I talked to a parent who said that her kid was like almost shivering with the excitement of getting the chance to get an autograph from one of the Rangers players. That's the magic. That's what it's all about. Okay, the update from the 570 News Center, and then by request from one of you, where can we find the perfect cookie in this region? We're going to try to find out next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Today we are going on a quest together here on the Flipside. And obviously, with any adventure like this, we rely on your help. I've got my pad of paper in front of me. I am writing the headline right now and underlining it. Best cookies. Look, I will get accused of being the worst journalist ever. By the way, not a journalist. I mean, I am by trade, and I've spent many years reporting on the news and behaving as a journalist. But I am now a talk show host where I discuss the issues of the day, and I offer my opinion on them. And yes, every once in a while, I will go so far down the rabbit hole just to find something off the wall and as light can be. And in this case, so we do this every Thursday morning, have a little bit of fun, take a break from the heavy stuff on this segment we call the Flipside. And today I'm taking my cue directly from you. In fact, I'm taking my cue directly from my buddy Pat, who sent me an email and wanted to know the answer to a question. I know what my answer to this question is, but maybe, just maybe, you have a different answer. The subject line of Pat's email is best chocolate chip cookies in KW. I know. With all the things going on in the world right now, why are we going to focus on chocolate chip cookies? I'll tell you why. Because you need a break from the heavy stuff every once in a while. And Pat's email says, okay, Mike, we've heard from the butter tart world. Where is the best cookie sold? Craig's Cookies hasn't arrived. I don't even know what Craig's Cookies is. Crumble cookies, the jury is out. I haven't tried a crumble cookie. Maybe we need a distraction from taxes, Trump, Carney. There's an investigation warranted. I leave it to you, buddy. All right, Pat, if you say so, I will endeavor to find the answer to your question. Thank you for the email to mike@570news.com. I am always happy to entertain your emails, read them on the air when appropriate, and in this case, take the cause directly to the listener. Where can we find the best cookie sold in the region of Waterloo? It's as simple as that, but maybe, just maybe, you know the answer to that. I might even go so far as to say, not the best cookie sold, but the best cookie made. I have long talked about, I mean, this goes way back in the day, about my mother's chocolate chip cookies. I don't know how. I just don't know how. But maybe it's because they're my very first chocolate chip cookie. When I was a kid, we were so spoiled to have a mother who always had homemade. Like whatever it was homemade. So sometimes I'd be at my buddy's place and they'd have Chips Ahoy chocolate chip cookies. Like, you want a chocolate chip cookie? I'm like, yeah, I want a chocolate chip cookie. And then they'd give you a Chips Ahoy cookie and you're like, yeah, that's not a chocolate chip cookie. My mom's chocolate chip cookies were chocolate chip cookies. It goes right down to the homemade jams. Like, sorry, Smuckers, nice try, but it just doesn't, it never lived up to what we were so fortunate and so spoiled to have had at home, the jams that my mom made. So my mom's chocolate chip cookies will forever be my absolute favorites, number one with a bullet. And, you know, my beloved doesn't bake often, but lately I don't know where she found the recipe. I saw it on the counter the other day, though. They were called World's Best Chocolate Chip Cookies. And let me tell you, I have been enjoying them with my coffee every morning so far this week. Yes, I am still spoiled even in my adult years. But if I were to venture out of the home kitchen and into the great unknown of the cookie world or the cookie section at the grocery store, forgive me, but I still will default to the decadent chocolate chip anytime. That is a good chocolate chip cookie. I'm not wrong, am I? The answer is no, you're not wrong, Farwell. That is a fantastic store-bought, mass-produced chocolate chip cookie. I also have had the opportunity to visit Sweet Lou's. I learned that Sweet Lou himself is from the Sioux. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for our northernmost Ontario Hockey League city. And we had a great chat about the Sioux Greyhounds and the Kitchener Rangers and Lou's arrival here in Waterloo. But our sweet little angelic child, when she was that, before she became a, grown-up post-secondary student that flew the coop and doesn't come back home anymore. These kids are going to break your heart. But we used to go on little dates together for coffees or cookies or whatever. We would make milkshakes. We would do that too. So we had on occasion, we would go out to Sweet Lou's just to get some cookies and enjoyed them very much. But I still, outside of the home kitchen, would default to a decadent chocolate chip cookie from the grocery store. Where do you find? Let's help Pat get the answer to his question. We have heard from the butter tart world. We know where to get great butter tarts. Psst, they're at Just Love Pie in Waterloo. And we know we shouldn't get them with raisins. But where are we going to find the best cookie? Simple question. Let's help Pat get the answer. And if you've tried one of these Craig's cookie things, let me know, because I've never had one of those before. And I'm yet to try the crumble cookies idea. We actually get pretty good cookies. I don't know where they get them. I'm sure they are store-bought somewhere. And if they're not, my apologies to Toby and Megan at the Village Caterer. But they bring in a nice tray of goodies to the media room. Village Caterer supplies our meals at the Kitchener Rangers games. And the only problem I ever have is not getting to the media room soon enough to get a chocolate chip cookie. There are varieties of cookies on the tray, but the chocolate chips are my favorite. And they're quite a good chocolate chip cookie, but I'm pretty sure they're a store-bought from somewhere. Either way, they're not a bad cookie. So these good chocolate chip cookies, or just in general. I mean, if you're an Oreo person or an Oreo, name the flavor that goes into the Oreo cookie, because you got an Oreo cookie for all occasions these days, don't you? Like, come on with your coming on. I used to like a Fudgio pretty good, too. Anyway, we're going to help Pat answer his question. Where can we find the best cookie? Pat sends the email. We take it to you on the flip side to find the best cookie. I'm gonna stick to the decadent chocolate chip right now, the President's Choice brand in the grocery store. What about you? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. It is as easy as the question gets on the flip side. Where do we find the best cookie? My coworkers got rather excited by this earlier today, and they said, Farwell, you have to organize a taste test. Like, I won't believe you just by word. We're going to need to have all of these cookies brought in at some point and then taste test all of them. And by taste test all of them, I mean share them with my coworkers, because they're very excited to find out the answer to this question. Again, it's an easy question. Tell me where to find the best cookie in town. When life gets tough, just be the cookie. We'll take your suggestions on the flip side. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Pat sent me an email with a simple question. And I said, okay, Pat, I will take it to the people. because once the people have spoken, we will know the definitive answer. I've got my pad of paper in front of me. I've got the headline, Best Cookies, written down. What are our options? Will we arrive at some sort of consensus? Pat's email to Mike at 570news.com says, okay, Mike, we have heard from the butter tart world. Now, where is the best cookie sold? Maybe we need a distraction from taxes, Trump, and Carney. An investigation is warranted. I leave it to you. And so from Pat to you, I ask that question. Where is the best cookie sold? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Clinton sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. He says, hey, Mike, this is coming from me, a guy who's trying to lose some weight, and I really do love my cookies. I'm not picky, but I have to admit the best ones I've had so far are from Crumble in Waterloo. They're unreal. They even roll out new flavors every week. Clinton, I appreciate that. And I'm with you, too. I am not fussy at all. A cookie is a cookie. Does it have sugar in it? Awesome. Does it have some chocolate, too? I'm in again. Amber's email to Mike at 570news.com. I like this one, and I can confirm because I have taste tested. Amber says, we truly have the best cookies here at the dealership, which is Hefner Lexus Toyota, at the Bright Up Street Garage Cafe. When you're waiting for your vehicle at Hefner, you can go in the Bright Up Street Garage Cafe, got some Wi-Fi, I pull out my laptop, get a cup of coffee, maybe a cookie, and yes, they're very good. Amber says, our baker Stephanie went to culinary school to learn all things baking, and she spends her entire days doing all of the baking for our cafe. Let your listeners know they should come and check us out if they haven't already. There you go. Right there on King, just past Fairway. Marianne says the best chocolate chip cookie in KW is at Sabletine Fine Pastries on Lexington in Waterloo. It's a really buttery, good cookie. That from Marianne, Farwell's Force member number 258. Let's go to the phones. Hear some voices on this. The best cookie in KW. Sean, Farwell's Force member number 165. What is it?
Oh, the best biscuit I found. Believe it or not, I found this at Zayre's of all places.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It's imported from. It's not cheap. Comes from Scotland.
Listen, you got to pay for quality, Sean. Quality cookies, they come at a price.
I love dark chocolate. This is a dark chocolate ginger biscuit. It is. It's called Border, and it's in the imported section. Like I said, it is dark chocolate on ginger. It is fantastic. But then I was in the British Bakery off of Eagle, and I found a raspberry version that's even better. These Border ones are just, like I said, they come from Scotland. They are fantastic. If you love dark chocolate, get the Border ones.
All right, Sean, appreciate the call. Dark chocolate cookie. I don't know. I'm going to stick. I think I'd rather stick with my milk chocolate or my chocolate chips. But there you go. Border, imported from Scotland. Let's hear what Brittany has to say. Brittany, good morning.
Morning.
What do you think? The best cookie in KW is?
The best cookie I've ever had, best chocolate chip cookie, would be Dronkowski's in St. George. They have an amazing cookie. It's perfectly crispy on the outside, gooey on the inside, and then topped with a flaky sea salt. It is the best cookie ever.
Hang on now. Dronkowski's, did you call it?
Yes.
In St. George?
In St. George. They also have amazing sandwiches there, but I will drive there specifically for their cookies.
That sounds amazing. Now, are there different kinds? Did you just describe your favorite of the bunch?
Yeah, I would say so. They have a good ginger molasses as well, but it's nothing like the chocolate chip cookie that they have.
That sounds like an excuse for a motorcycle ride for me when the weather gets better, Brittany.
Yes, it's amazing. You have to try it.
Okay, consider it done. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Good to hear from you today. Dronkowski's in St. George, eh? Little chocolate chip cookie, gooey inside, crispy outside, little sea salt sprinkled on top. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. Mark, good morning.
Hi, Mike. It's called Leona's Bake Shop. It's just off of Duke Street.
Leona's just off of Duke.
They actually won a $100,000 bakery award about a year ago.
No, Mark, you're killing me here, buddy. You're killing me. If you know the place, you know the place. It's Lenjo's.
Yeah, I know the place,
it's
Mike.
not called Leona's, you knucklehead.
I'm sorry. Call me a knucklehead. What's her name?
It's called Lenjo's.
Oh, I'm sorry. But
That's
her
okay.
name- I'm sorry, Mike. Anyhow, any cookie there is fantastic, okay?
Okay, I got you, buddy.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Lenjo's is fabulous. Your little neighborhood bakery, right? It's just off Wellington on Aaron Street, just off Duke. But Lenore, who is the Len behind Lenjo's, does do some fantastic work. I love the macarons from there as well. Absolutely incredible. Sandy sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I usually bake my own, but if you like more of a shortbread type, go to the Rising Dough in Preston. I've read about this recently, Sandy, and I think I might just have to do that. Mike says the Sunnycrest Home Bakery in Hawksville is going to get you the best cookies. Nathan says crumble is quite good, but it's very expensive. My grandma makes the best oatmeal chocolate chip cookies, which I've been learning to make. Good job, Nathan. I've tried on multiple occasions to replicate my mother's chocolate chip cookie recipe. Forget about it. It doesn't work. And don't even get me started on the oatmeal cookie recipe that came down from my great-grandmother Schultz. It's a larger, flatter cookie, crispy. Oh, my God. I can't even. It just... Now, Clinton emailed before about trying to lose weight and sharing cookie information today. I'm getting hungry just thinking about this. Barb writes to Mike at 570news.com. Hi, Mike. Cookies are my life since I've been reading cookie books and studying as well as tasting cookies. Wait a minute. Barb, how do I get that job? Can I do this too? Decadent cookies, Barb agrees with. And do you know the trick? She says they have coconut in them. Wait, what? I don't like coconut, though, Barb. At least I don't think I do. Those decadent cookies are good. Barb also likes Sweet Lou's. Today, at this moment, it's a warm chocolate chip cookie from Roux Bakery on Belmont. R-O-U-X. I haven't heard of it. Roux or Roux? I'm going to go with Roux. Your cookie lover, Barb. Well done by you, Barb. Appreciate the email to Mike at 570news.com. Let's see if this is a different Barb on the phone. Hi, Barb.
No, it's not a different Barb.
You're okay. Wait, tell me more about that. You read cookie books. You eat cookies every. What's going on here, Barb?
Yes, I've been loving cookies since I was 10 years old. It was the first books I ever took out of the library was cookie books.
I love it.
So I love cookies. It's always changing, and I'm always looking for the best cookies. I've had many all over the place. I usually find a cookie, a nice warm one. Right now, Roux Bakery, they have breads and other things too, but this one cookie, if you're just walking around Belmont Village, which is a great place to walk, you can get a warm cookie, and it's a good sized cookie too. So
okay, so
chocolate chip, yep.
Roux, it's in Belmont Village.
Yeah.
All right, Barb, you sound like you know your cookie stuff.
I also bake cookies. I'm a volunteer baker.
Really? Where at?
At the museum. At Dune Village Baker.
Oh, no kidding.
Dune Village, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I moved out here and I started volunteering there, so I love it. And I bake thousands of cookies for them there.
You know of what you speak when you're talking about cookies.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to check out Roux Bakery. Thank you, Barb.
Sure. Okay, you take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Good to hear from you today. There you go. Belmont Village, eh? If I took the right route home from work, I could stop by on my way there. Grant, good morning.
Good morning. I want all those places cookies. My goodness,
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop and I'm going to get some decadent chocolate chip, I think, and then I'm going to go home. I'm going to pour some milk because I still like to do this because I'm a child, and I'm going to. But the milk has protein, so I'm going to say I'm getting some protein, and I'm going to dunk. I'm going to crush a whole row.
Oh, I don't like you now.
Why? You don't dunk your cookies?
Because I want all those cookies now.
No, you get your own cookies. I'll fight you for cookies, Grant. Okay, what's your favorite?
Cafeo doesn't have a bad cookie cafe, and then Keebler's. Those small chewy cookies way back in the 70s. Wow, I could eat the whole bag full of those keepers because they were always chewy, right? You remember those cookies?
I do remember those cookies. I always preferred mine crunchier, but when you bring up Keebler, I can't help but think of those old commercials with the Keebler elves, right? And yes, we've had many a good cookie over the years, but see, we didn't have a lot of store-bought cookies in our house as kids because, as I said earlier, we were kind of spoiled. Mom baked virtually everything all the time. That's how it worked out. I'm afraid we could not arrive at a consensus here today. I don't think we even had multiple, well, Crumble came up in 2 emails. So that might be the leader, if you will, Crumble cookies in Waterloo. But here's the thing. Can you ever go wrong with a cookie? I don't think you can. When life gets tough, just be the cookie. Pat, I appreciate the email and the suggestion for a Flipside topic. I don't know how much we helped you, other than to say, listen, life is short, okay? Enjoy the cookie. Going to get you an update from the 570 News Center and then open phone lines so you can have your say on the Talkback Hour. What do you think about the idea of shooting someone who breaks into your house? We'll get into that and some more on the Mike Farwell Show with Talkback coming up on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Every day from noon until 1, whether we like it or not, we open the phone lines to you, give you the chance to start the conversation, have your say on the issues of the day, or something you would like to make the issue of the day. Phone lines wide open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll start with Tom. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. I don't know you're going to have all the answers to these questions or where you're going to agree to some of the things here, but I got a couple of concerns in that. I'm not too sure about this BYOB thing.
Okay.
That Mr. Ford wants to, I think it could create more problems on. I don't know when Mr. Ford was at a party when someone brought their own booze and what happens after that.
What do you mean? What happens after that? You think they drive home drunk or something?
Yeah, that and things usually get people start drinking other people's booze and everything else because they run out or drink all theirs, like something so that way. And yes, I'm more concerned about more drinking and driving and seeing that's on a rise. I wasn't overly impressed with his comments about the resident taking matters into his own hands. If that's his own personal opinion, I think he should keep that to himself because I think people could take that the wrong way and start promoting, people buying guns legally but shooting before anything else. And but the war that's going on over in Iran, that I thought that Mr. Trump, he's the chairman of this Board of Peace. Was the Board of Peace actually about a piece of property and part of the action, or was it about doves and olive branches? Because this is just, this guy just seems to be, a lot of it's irking myself and a few other people's nap. And that's on my mind, Mike.
All right, Tom, I appreciate the call. I'll say this about the war, because what caught my attention this morning was how our reporter, Jamie Pulfer, talked about being day 20. And I thought, isn't this interesting that we're still counting the days? And then the next thing you know, it's going to be like Russia, Ukraine, and it's going to be 4 years. Like, at what point do we stop counting the days? And this was a president that said he was going to end all wars. But anyway, I don't have a great answer to your specific question. But I will just say it seems to me as though Donald Trump looks at the world as a board game of risk, and which does he want to conquer or take possession of next. Interesting questions on Doug Ford. I've done BYOB, and if somebody runs out of their B, they're more than welcome to share mine. Sharing is caring. And I get the concerns. Yes, drinking and driving is on the increase. I think people that do that should be locked up forever. I really have a hard time with drinking and driving, but people are always going to drink and drive just because like they're doing it anyway. I would say I personally want to be treated more like an adult when it comes to alcohol. I don't like the rules the way that they are. I haven't liked them this way for quite some time, since my first very liberating experience in Europe, where you can just have a beer and stand anywhere at the concert outside and watch that show. We don't need to be as restrictive as we are here, I don't think. And the Premier's comments on shooting someone who enters your abode. I disagree, Tom, that more people will get firearms licenses and then just go randomly shooting people. This is somebody that came into your house, and they came into your house for a very specific reason, right? They wanted to take your things or do harm to you or your family. I'm honestly not sure how big a problem I have with the licensed firearm owner using their firearm in that case and shot the suspect in the leg. Anyway, I'm going to get to more of what the Premier said, because I will say that I think it was a little bit reckless, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But Andre is already with us on the Talkback Hour as well, so let's hear from Andre. Good afternoon, Andre.
Sorry, Mike. I'm laughing inside, like Terry said, because, wow, you know, I mean, like back in my days when I was a little teenager and I was doing a little bit of wrong decisions. And I remember when because the windows were down in my days, and I used to take the change to go to the arcade. And farmers, they weren't afraid. They took their shotgun, and, you know, they had those 12 shotgun with salt in it. And, you know, I never got touched, so that's good. I was smart enough to just run fast enough. But, wow, are we at those days again? Like, that's just crazy. But
well, anyway, stay off the farmer's property, Andre.
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't learn now.
All right.
We in 2026 need to have these snipers and shoot the person that walks, and, you know what I mean? Like, come on now. You know, you don't want to take my stuff here. I'll walk out, do your thing, you know, call the insurance, right? But I want to talk about the cookies. Thank you for that subject, Pat, because when I leave, I'm going to do like you, Mike. I'm going to go to a superstore, and I'm going to go get the decorative. I haven't had it in probably 10 years because I forget how good they are. And the other thing is, thanks for the memory, Mike, because my best cookie was in high school, again, when my parents made me lunch, but I always try to borrow a couple bucks here and there, not from the cars, but to work, and get the galette. It was a big cookie with oatmeal, hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and they were a buck a piece, even 45 years ago. Man, they were good. But
there you go, the galette that Andre was able to enjoy. I'm glad we could take you on that trip down memory lane. Okay, let's get back to some of what Tom was saying when it comes to Ontario Premier Doug Ford. And I'll tell you what, we'll play the audio. So Doug Ford goes from, he's got 3 beefs here, and he's in fine form. You can tell that he is freestyling here, starting with the homeowner who shot a suspect who had invaded his home. 3 people come into your home in the middle of the night, and they came into the home of a licensed firearms owner who shot in self-defense and hit one of the suspects in the leg. They fled, and the family and the possessions in the home were safe. It starts there. Then you'll hear a little bit about the federal firearms buyback program, and we'll even get into weak-kneed judges. So Premier Ford goes for the trifecta at a media conference just north of Arthur yesterday.
As for the person that was defending his family, he was a legal gun owner, was stored properly, congratulations. Yeah, I'm glad you shot the guy. Teach us the rest of these robbers, and I encourage everyone out there that's a legal gun owner. Someone's going to come in and try to kill you and kill your family. Remember, it was just last week, one guy got shot because he was trying to protect his kids. Well, you know, these guys, they need to be shot, as far as I'm concerned. You're coming through the front door to hurt your family. I'll never forget the one family that the man was protecting his 4-year-old kid, and his child, I should say, and there was 3 other children there and his wife, and they assassinated him right in front of his kids. Like, these ruthless, like, they need to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Congratulations for shooting this guy. Should have shot him a couple more times as far as I'm concerned. And by the way, the federal government, they're spending so much time on going after legal, law-abiding gun owners that safely store their guns, safely store their ammunition, their hunters or their sport shooters. I have an idea. Rather than wasting hundreds of millions of dollars going after legal gun owners, why don't you spend that hundreds of millions of dollars going after the bad guys? You know, they always want to protect the bad guys. The judges always want to protect the Charter of Rights. How about the Charter of Rights of the people to keep them safe, rather than always protecting these criminals? Because we have some great judges, but we have some really weak-kneed judges letting these criminals out on bail, not once, not twice, 4 or 5 times, just to go, okay, Johnny, go out and break into the next house. They're violent criminals, and we're going to hold them to account.
There you go. Ontario Premier Doug Ford at his finest. I call that version of our Premier Uncle Doug, because he's just sounding off. And I'll tell you this. I agree with the sentiment. If somebody is breaking into your home to do harm to you or to take your property, and you are a licensed firearms owner and you are able to get that legal firearm and the legal ammunition for it and shoot somebody in the leg, hey, don't break into that home. Where I think this gets a little reckless is just in the manner in which it was delivered, right? Congratulations, you should have shot him some more. I think that's a little too cavalier. Like it or not, you are an elected leader, and leadership requires you to take a more measured approach. So you can absolutely, if I were advising Uncle Doug in this case, I would just advise him to say, listen, I completely understand why this happened, and I support this homeowner, and I'm going to continue to work on legislation to toughen bail laws, to bring in a castle law like we have in the United States, those sorts of things. Remember, too, it is legal. There are parameters around self-defense here in Canada as well. But you have to be a little more measured, in my opinion, than just saying, congratulations, you should have shot him again. That's a little bit too cavalier about something that's pretty serious. And again, leadership requires a little bit more decorum sometimes. But I get it. This is Doug Ford. And certainly at the heart of it, I can get behind the sentiment. Andrew is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Mike. That's exactly what I wanted to say, and you covered it for me.
So you think that you agree with the sentiment, but Doug Ford could have delivered it better?
Yes. To say shoot him twice a couple of times, hey, I think you're getting a little careless with your words. People might do something like that and say, well, Doug Ford told me to do that. And, I agree with the whole policy. Let's just be a little less reckless, though.
Andrew, I appreciate the call. We are of like mind. Love to hear what's on your mind during the Talkback Hour. Doug Ford goes off on shooting home invaders. If you have the means to do it, do it. And shoot them more than once. He goes off on the federal gun buyback program. He goes off on weak-kneed judges that are allowing criminals out on bail time and again. There's a lot in there, but Premier Ford went on a bit of a rant. As Andrew and I said, it's just, I think you have to be a little more measured than that. This is a very serious situation, and I think it requires a level of gravity that the Premier didn't bring to it yesterday. 'Tis all. We'll keep taking your calls on the Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Something I learned a long time ago when covering media conferences led by elected officials. They are at that event to tell you some good news, right? Their government is doing this, that, or the other thing, supporting this, that, or the other thing, and they want to get that good news message out there. But then when they take questions, you are in no way obligated as a reporter to ask only about the message they are sharing that day. Oh, here's the good news. Here's how great we are. Here's how much money we're investing. When you get a leader in front of you to take questions, you ask them all kinds of questions. And when the premier was in North Wellington yesterday to make a housing-related announcement, the reporters decided to ask him about the homeowner north of Toronto whose home was broken into by 3 suspects. And this homeowner just so happened to be a licensed firearms owner. And that homeowner and firearms owner shot one of those suspects.
As for the person that was defending his family, he was a legal gun owner, was stored properly, congratulations. Yeah, I'm glad you shot the guy. Teach us the rest of these robbers, and I encourage everyone out there that's a legal gun owner. Someone's going to come in and try to kill you and kill your family. Remember, it was just last week, one guy got shot because he was trying to protect his kids. Well, you know, these guys, they need to be shot, as far as I'm concerned. You're coming through the front door to hurt your family. I'll never forget the one family that the man was protecting his 4-year-old kid, and his child, I should say, and there was 3 other children there and his wife, and they assassinated him right in front of his kids. Like, these ruthless, like, they need to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Congratulations for shooting this guy. Should have shot him a couple more times as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. Should have shot him a couple more times as far as Uncle Doug, Premier Doug, is concerned. Jim sends an email to Mike at 570news.com, says, I love hearing Dougie spout off about the legal gun owners and the right to protect their families and property. Dougie for Prime Minister. We'll go to the phones. Grant is with us on Talkback. Hello, Grant.
Yeah. I'd like to touch on kids' ability, their layoffs. I think the government should take a walk through these places. I never helped out there, but I can't imagine not able to take my child to these places because the funds aren't there. I used to help out at Sunbeam Home in the pool program, and the amount of calmness with these individuals in the pool is over the top. That's how they release their stress level. So I'm not too sure. Like I said, I think the government should take a walk through these places and think, oh, yeah, geez, what we're allowing here.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, Grant, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for kids' ability in this region as well. It's been a fantastic community partner in so many ways, not to mention the families it has positively impacted over the many years it's been here. So this is very difficult news when you hear about those layoffs at this organization that has meant so much to our community. Wayne is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Wayne.
Good afternoon. I watch your show quite often. It's the first time calling in.
Oh, well, welcome aboard. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. On this deal about the break-in and the guy shooting the guy with the break-in, I'm just wondering, it'd be interesting to see the statistics on whether or not these guys come back for revenge after something like that happens, and be prepared.
Good question.
I was just curious.
All right, Wayne, I appreciate that, and it's nice to hear from a first-time caller on the show. It's a great point. You know, does violence beget more violence? And then is there revenge carried out? It may depend on whether or not this home in some way was targeted or may not. You're right. These 3 that wanted to get into that home and were unsuccessful, one of them ends up with a bullet in their leg. They may want to come back and just exact some revenge for what happened to them. So what's happening the next time? It's tough because, boy, oh boy, it seems as though, like, is it just me or are we hearing more about these things? And it gets a little bit unsettling, doesn't it? George is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, George.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. A few years ago, I had the wonderful chance to spend a week with a family in West Virginia. And let me tell you, Mike, they're not storing it away properly, where it's going to take you 10, 15 minutes to get the guns out. If someone breaks out, it's in a closet. As soon as they hear noise, those guns come right out, and they're pointing at the front door. So I think we're not at that state yet, of course, but I think Doug Ford is onto something.
All right, George, appreciate the call. West Virginia. I'll tell you something about West Virginia. One of my favorite. I will never forget my motorcycle trip to West Virginia. Some of the best riding I have ever had. And one afternoon when we pulled off to get some gas and stretch our legs a little bit at a gas station convenience store, the young lady working behind the counter had a sidearm strapped to her waist. Open carry in West Virginia. It was quite the sight, let me tell you. But boy, was the riding great. We're going to take a break, get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then take more of your calls on the Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day, noon till 1, open phone lines, giving you the chance to talk back on the issues of the day or something you would like to turn into an issue of the day. One of the big issues of this day is Ontario Premier Doug Ford using some reckless language, in my opinion. Congratulations to the guy who shot a guy breaking into his house. The guy who did the shooting was a registered legal firearms owner. And Premier Ford went on to say, congratulations, you should have shot him again. I understand the sentiment here, and I'm kind of picking up what the Premier is throwing down in this regard. I just think you need to be a little more careful with your language when you are the Premier of Canada's largest province and talking about such a serious situation. I think there are different ways to get the same message across without being so cavalier about it. But that's just where I'm sitting. We take calls and hear from you, from where you're sitting today. Sue, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
Yes, good afternoon. 3 ideas. People are trained about if there's a fire in their house, to train the kids and everybody how to escape. I think people should be trained for these surprises of break-ins. They don't come in through the front door. Ours came in through the back window of our kitchen. A big back picture window. Anyway, the other thing is I went out with a friend who is a lot older than me, and I went into his apartment. He had right at the front all the fencing swords right at the front. So I don't think anybody would want to go and rob from him either. And you got to remember, some of these people, too, that are refugees that have seen continuous combative stuff. They probably, machetes. They come to Canada for freedom and the fresh air and not having to worry about barbed fences and tomahawk. They come here for Canada is not the States. We are to protect our people, but don't aim for the heart either. Like the person aimed for a leg. Well, that's good. But when you go to these people that work on direct hits, they're always bang, bang, bang toward the heart. Aim for other places that will maybe not temporarily maim people.
Yeah, I hear you, Sue. So you got me thinking about this when you talked about practicing. Just like you practice a fire escape, which I remember being a kid and creating one of these fire escape plans when I was in school. And then we were supposed to bring it home and work on it with the family. And my parents were very good about keeping up with our studies and whatnot. I'm sure we spread it out over the dining room table and looked at it. And that was pretty much the end of that. Like, we never practiced this in any meaningful way. And we also never had a house fire, fortunately, I suppose. But when it comes to this idea, like, I like where you're going here, but let me tell you this. What I have learned through some experiences that I have been privileged to have, I have had the opportunity to train with the people whose job it is to respond to emergencies. And let me tell you, again, I'm going in completely new to all of this without any prior training, but the level of confusion, the sensory overload, the adrenaline rushing, like everything that's going on inside of your body, I wouldn't have been able to tell you like what color my own shoes were with everything that was going on. And these people who are responding in these emergencies are trained to block all of the nonsense, all of the noise out, and focus on the task at hand. And that takes a great deal of training. So even with as much as I subscribe to the sentiment that the Premier is expressing here when it comes to defending one's family, defending one's property, unless you are practicing this, training in this every day, probably multiple times a day or for a certain length of time every day, I don't know what the outcome is like when, if you're awakened in the middle of the night by these sounds and you are immediately triggered, on edge, adrenaline rushing, and then you're going to reach for that firearm and get ready to use it. Like, I can't even imagine all of the things that you hope are going right in that situation, which, by the way, is not to defend. Like, don't break into people's houses, for crying out loud. Anyway, when you got talking, Sue, about practicing or training, that's where my mind started to go. I can't, again, if you're not training at a pretty high level, then a whole lot of things can go wrong, that's for sure. Kyle is next on Talkback. Hello, Kyle.
I hope nobody breaks into my house. I see butt naked. So that'd be a sight to see, and that'd probably scare them off.
That is a good reminder to stay out of Listowel. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys were talking about the pepper spray, and I guess there's some blowback. People were thinking that, it could get into the wrong hands, and kids are going to be spraying everybody with it, and, it's a bad idea. But I think that you have to really just take a step back and look what else we have. Yeah, we have an illegal gun problem. And it's not the people that are the gun owner, or it's not the legal gun owners that are the issue. It's the ones that are importing or illegally bringing these guns into our country and using them. It's the same thing when you hear about BB guns being used. It's not the ones that own the BB gun that got it from a Canadian Tire that went to the proper process of getting it. Because if you go to Canadian Tire, they're all locked up. You have to get an associate to get you either a BB gun or even some of the knives that they have behind there. So I think the same thing would happen with the pepper spray. Like, don't think about it as, now all these people we're going to have such an issue with it. I think you're always going to have issues with whatever you bring in legally. Look at cigarettes and marijuana and all that stuff. Sure, it's illegal, but there's still an underground market for it. So I think that you're never going to fully eliminate it. But I don't have an issue with the pepper spray, just as long as, it's like a Canadian Tire where it's behind a cabinet. You have to get an associate, show some ID, show who you are, right? And then that's the process that I would say is the better way. But that's the way I look at it, Mike, is, people are worried about it getting out of hand, but you look at the other things that we have to get, and it's all locked up. So I just thought I'd give my 2 cents on that. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Kyle, appreciate it. We keep our alcohol out of reach of children, too, and then they get to it when we're away or something like that. So you have the pepper spray at home in your nightstand, and then your kids come in while you're sleeping naked and take your pepper spray, and then your kids have your pepper spray. Just as another aspect to what you're talking about. But thanks for the call. Dylan, you're next on Talkback. Hello.
Hey, hello. Just to start, old Dougie there. I think he was, trying to make the point that, if you have to protect your family, you can. But maybe saying shooting the guy again was a little too far.
Might have been.
I did want to call in about 2 callers ago, Sue, talking about shoot for the leg and nonsense like that. If you have to use deadly force, that means you use deadly force. Cops don't shoot guys in the leg for a reason. The only time you can shoot someone is if you have to use deadly force. If that's the case, then you shoot to kill. And you don't stop shooting until you've killed. Because if that person gets the gun away from you, it's bad news for you and your family. You also mentioned, about reaching for a gun. Well, in Canada, it doesn't work like that. One, we're not allowed handguns anymore. Two, the gun's got to be locked up. The bullet's got to be locked up in a separate space. So I hope you have time from between hearing that person breaking the window and getting to your bedroom.
So do you think, I wondered about this with the guy in Vaughan. Like, do you think he did not have his firearm stored properly?
I'm sure, someone in law enforcement has asked him about that because having a gun on the ready is absolutely not legal in Canada. I don't know. I've always appreciated living in Canada with our gun culture, over the U.S. and, everything you hear about down in the U.S. and people, all the gun violence. I don't wish that for Canada. But I am happy to hear, Doug and other politicians not being negative about people protecting their family when required.
You know what? I think that's a really good point, Dylan. And just back to your point on if an officer does discharge their firearm, it's shooting to kill. I'm pretty sure. I thought the idea was they shoot for the torso because it's the largest area to shoot for. Not necessarily to kill, but you're shooting for the torso because it's the easiest target.
Well, if you're shooting in the torso, basically, you're going to take an organ out and chances are the person's going to die. But talk to Kroll or whoever you have on your radio there next time. But definitely the policy is not shoot the guy in the leg.
Yeah, no,
absolutely not.
I agree with that. Appreciate it, Dylan. And we will bring this up when Chief Kroll is back. He's in first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon for our Ask the Chief segment. So that's going to come up again on April the 7th if you're keeping track. So 2 weeks from next Tuesday. But we have talked about this before because Doug Ford floated the castle law idea some time ago. And as I recall, WRPS was not in favor of amending legislation in that regard. I'm pretty sure about that. As I'm pretty sure, and if any of my friends in law enforcement want to send an anonymous note, I'm all here. I'm here for it all day. But I do think the idea when discharging one's firearm, if you are in law enforcement, is you shoot at the torso because it is the largest part of the body to aim for. This whole, hit him in the shoulder, hit him in the leg. It doesn't work that way because it's a lot harder to hit that smaller area. It's not necessarily to use lethal force, but it is to give you the best chance at stopping that person from doing that dangerous thing. Again, I'm a civilian. I just sit here and talk on the radio. And I'm going to talk to Bob next on Talkback. Hello, Bob.
Good morning, Mike.
Good day, sir.
First-time caller.
A first-time caller, Bob.
Yeah, that I.
Welcome to the show.
I've been listening to you for many, many years.
Thank you for that.
I'm going back a few years now. We were broken into when I lived in Waterloo, and they stole my wife's jewelry and so on. We had a dog, a Cocker Spaniel, kicked it in the head.
No.
Yeah, so we phoned the police, and I asked them, I says, now, if I was home and I got a bat and hit him over the head, he says, wrong thing to do. He says, they can charge you with assault. I says, really? I said, what if the dog would have bit him? They can charge you with not having control of your dog.
These are true statements, Bob. Remember the fella up, I think it was Lindsay up by Peterborough, right? Who got arrested and charged, but all charges were dropped. He was completely acquitted. There has to be an investigation, and I think initially the approach to settling the issue in the moment is to apply the charges, because I think the suspect in that case, the person that broke into the home, had to be airlifted to a trauma center in Hamilton or Toronto or whatever from up by Peterborough. That's how badly he got beaten.
Yeah, really, because our dog, it ended up with Crohn's disease because he was kicked in the head. Now, the thing is, he was a very, very laid-back dog. We found mail at the back of our house. Our mailbox is at the front of the house. My wife took the dog out for a walk the next day, and across the street there was a mailman coming up the street, and it started growling. Like he didn't do this before. We found out this is a new substitute mail letter carrier. And it's just weird with this mail in the back. I phoned the post office, And they said, well, there's nothing they can do about that. I said, our mailbox is in the front. Our house was broken into. I maybe investigate this goddamn letter carrier.
Yeah, it's a good. You know what, Bob? I can hear where you're coming from there. And just on the point of, what you were told about being charged. See, reasonable. That's the word we have in our laws here in Canada. A homeowner can use reasonable force to protect their property and or person. And then, of course, we get into the discussion about, well, what is reasonable? And I think it's determined by the level of threat that you are facing in that moment. So I'll just go back to that Lindsay example. I'm going off the top of my head here, so feel free to correct my narrative. But if I recall, the person who broke in had a crossbow, and then the homeowner used a baseball bat. Is that how it worked? So you bring the crossbow to the fight, I bring the baseball bat, I beat you senseless, literally. You're airlifted. I get charged because I caused so much physical harm to you that I'm airlifted. You have to be airlifted to a trauma center. That's why the charge would have been laid. It's pretty clear cut, right? You did beat this person to the point that they needed critical medical attention. But then you start peeling back the layers and you do your investigation and you realize what the threat was at the time and whether or not this was determined. I suppose it was determined, reasonable, etc. Anyway, these are interesting times, are they not? Ontario Premier Doug Ford thinks we should just all shoot everybody multiple times. It's the way he's talking these days. This is Talk Back on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day, noon till 1, we open our phone lines, take your pulse on the issues of the day with the Talkback Hour. Let's get right back to the phones. Ernie is with us. Hey, Ernie, good afternoon.
Hey, Mikey. Happy March 1st.
Yeah, to you too. How's it going on the home front with kids?
It's going fun, buddy.
Okay.
It's going fun.
Good.
So just a quick point on this. There's actually a town, I know it's not really relevant to us, but there's a town in Georgia where it's legally required that every homeowner has a gun. And not that I want to become like this at all. That's not what I'm saying here. But it's interesting to me that it's one of the lowest crime rate towns in the USA. So I heard about this yesterday. I didn't believe it, so I looked it up. It's a town in Georgia, or Kennesaw, Georgia, I believe it is. But think about how wild that kind of is. But it's a different perspective. But their violent crime, murder rate, and break-ins is almost zero.
That is very interesting. And I guess because it's a legal requirement to possess a firearm, then people think twice before taking somebody else's stuff.
Right. And that's the other thing, too. I just want to say, are these guys that did this, are they out on bail yet? Do we even know, do we know that? That's where the onus has to be on keeping these guys in jail, getting these guns off the streets. Nothing against legal firearm owner, let them rip. Let them, if they have it and somebody comes in, by all means, you have to do what you have to do. I got 3 kids here. My grandma was broken into, and they beat her head in with the butt end of a shotgun. This is years ago. But they left her there for dead for 3 days. She wasn't found until 3 days later. So I have absolutely zero sympathy for these guys with these illegal guns breaking in, getting out on the streets probably no time anyways. So that's just my point on this, Mike. But anyways, happy Thursday.
Before you go, and I don't want to make it too unserious after that serious. That's awful to hear about your grandmother. My goodness. But
yeah, she was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
she survived.
Good.
There was serious injuries. She was in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know. I met a lady yesterday at the downtown showdown with the Kitchener Rangers who apologized to me on behalf of her husband, because she said he was the guy at a Rangers game that came up to my broadcast booth and was showing off his Baltimore Ravens jersey.
Oh.
And it wasn't your missus, but I figured it had to be one of your knucklehead friends that you all hang out with your Baltimore Ravens North fan club up here. So there you go.
You know what?
Your wives may not approve of your behavior, Ernie.
Mine does, because she's just the biggest fan as I am. But Mr. Greg Noble, you'd like him because he's a season ticket holder to the Rangers, and he doesn't miss a game. He takes his kids almost every Friday.
I'll bet you it was him. I didn't get his name, but I met her yesterday, and she apologized on his behalf. So there you go.
Well, we won't be apologizing on my behalf. And Zane did want to say, go Rangers, go Steelers, but I had to get away from my kids for a bit to make the call. So.
All right. I appreciate it. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ernie. Ernie's a Baltimore Ravens fan. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. We play in the same football division, the AFC North, in the National Football League, and there's a lot of good back and forth banter. And yes, I remember that gentleman, I used the term loosely, that came up to the broadcast booth at the Rangers game earlier this season and was very proudly showing off his purple Baltimore Ravens jersey. We almost got into a fist fight, Broadcaster takes on fan. But that kind of takes me back to what Ernie was saying, and that small town in Georgia where you are legally required to own the firearm. It gets into the whole Lord of the Flies thing, doesn't it? Really? Kind of, sort of. Whoever has the most power eventually will try to exert that power, be it strength or firepower, over the person who has less. And that story plays out in a variety of forms in communities every single day. So we'll just leave that on that note as we wrap things up here for another day on the show. Tomorrow is the Friday show. We've got an all request Friday, chock full of disco music. Heaven help me in that regard. We're going to play your not $1 million question, and you're going to hear a story, among others, but about how our community, the hockey community particularly, has rallied around a family whose son is enduring a medical journey that nobody should have to endure. All of that coming up on tomorrow's show. It'll start tomorrow morning at 9, and you, of course, are invited to the conversation. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.